the roll call vote, beginning with, we usually start with Jason Thielen.
Jason Thielen, present.
Carla Merrill, present.
Greg Gordon, present.
Lon Lott, present.
Okay, and that gives us a full quorum. We'll start with the roll call vote, beginning with, we usually start with Jason Thielen. I'm hearing some feedback.
Jason Thielen, present.
Sorry, one second.
Everyone needs to put themselves on mute.
Merrill, present.
Okay. So Carla, would you please give us an opening prayer?
Sure. Father in heaven, we're so grateful that we are able to meet together as a city council and with the staff of Alpine City and with the prospective candidates for city council. Father, we're grateful that we're able to meet together in this time of the pandemic. And we ask a special blessing beyond all the first responders and for all the people that are on the front lines are keeping this nation going, that their health and strength might be fortified, that they will be able to help us and endure this time of trial. Please help us as leaders in the city that we might have their spirit with us, that we might be able to enjoy a lively and cordial dialogue and be able to resolve things for the city that will be beneficial to the citizens of Alpine. And we say these things in Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Carla. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, good. All right. Now is when we usually do the Pledge of Allegiance, and I've struggled with this because it's kind of a disjointed process to do. I don't want to seem unpatriotic, but I think we'll go ahead and bypass the Pledge of Allegiance this time since only one voice can be heard anyway. We'll resume again when we start holding live meetings. Let's move on to the consent calendar. First, before we do that, I'd also like to welcome Reed Thompson, our chief of the fire department, our city manager, Shane Sorensen, David Church, our city attorney, and Charmaine Warnock, our city recorder. Also, Austin Roy, our city planner. Hope I didn't miss anyone. Let's get into the consent calendar. Do we have any questions or comments on the consent calendar? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent calendar.
We have a second.
I'll second.
I'll second.
Got a second by Carla. Motion by Lon, second by Carla to pass the consent calendar. Any questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the consent calendar passes. And most of you all probably noticed the payment on Moyle Drive. I don't know if you've had a chance to see the finished product yet. There's still some cleanup left to do, but we now have a turnaround that is located at the west end of the park, just off of Moyle Drive. Okay, did you guys just notice the screen changed?
Yes, I have.
That's Jason.
Austin shared the agenda.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You can change your view there however you'd like.
All right, I'd rather view everyone who's, there we are. Sorry, it's gonna take me a second, guys. I'm a little challenged with these things. Okay, good. We have time for public comment. Shane, do we have any folks who have emailed us with questions or comments?
So we have one that I just noticed that came in today from, make sure, yeah, I'm not muted. From Lane Franks. He has some questions on the parking lot at the south end of Lambert Park. And we had discussed about possibly paving the road going from Country Matter Lane up to the parking lot. He has a lot of questions on when and the extent of that and reasons why it should be done and different things. So right now, I think what we'll do is forward this email to the council. And between now and the next meeting, we'll, have a response for him. So we can respond to him sooner, but if there's other questions, they can be addressed, and we'll have a little bit more information prior to the city council meeting that night. Another one, and it did not come through the email that is supposed to be for public comment, but there were some questions on the rigid Alpine project. And maybe when we start discussing that, we can get in. That item is on the agenda tonight. Maybe we can discuss some of those things when Paul Croft is on with us.
Okay.
That question came from the Russins. Those are the only two that I'm aware of.
Okay. Anything else we need to address before moving on?
Hey, Mayor, this is Brian Gilliam. I just wanted to jump in and make sure Charmaine got me on the record as being here. I'm not sure if she saw me come in or not.
Oh, good. Welcome, Brian.
Thanks.
Okay, reports and presentations. Shane, do we have anything there?
No, we do not tonight.
Okay. So we'll move on to our first action item. Once again, happy to have so many great candidates join us tonight. Thank you for your interest. We hope to have a good, thorough experience tonight. I've had a chance to visit with each of you, and to give you a heads up that the process tonight will follow. We need to vote publicly on the nominees. We're going to first hear from each nominee, and we're going to do it in the order as they appear on the agenda. Sorry, in your packet. So, hang on just a moment. Okay, so tonight we'll hear from each of you with a 3-minute presentation, and if you could help us understand what has motivated you to put your name in the hat for the city council position. If there are 2 or 3 key issues that are very important to you that you'd like to have an influence in, or if there are other factors that caused you to join the race, so to speak, we'd love to hear all about you, your background, and as much as you can fit into a 3-minute period. So with that, we'll start with Lori and then move to, just want to make sure I've got the right order here, to Geraldine. And after Geraldine, we'll hear from Jessica Smewen, and then Ed Bush, and then Troy Slade, in that order.
Okay.
So with that, take it away, Lori.
Okay, thanks everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
All right, so I have just a couple of comments. First of all, good evening. I'm really happy to be here. I'll admit that I'm nervous, and hopefully that will make my nerves settle a little bit. I am really interested in being the candidate to fill this position. I believe that with some of my unique background and some of the strengths that I could bring, I believe I would really be a benefit to the council. One of these strengths is a very fresh perspective. I'm quite new to Alpine, so unapologetically new kid on the block. I have not quite 2 years here. So I think that inherent in that is that I can see things with a little bit different, through a different lens. And that can usually be valuable to any sort of group, particularly a group in charge of a community. So I am new to Alpine, but I am not new to leadership. I'm not new to hard work or collaborating or doing hard things. I'm not new to connecting. I'm not new to having to take a tough position. I'm not new to those kinds of things. I'm new to Alpine. With my educational background, business background, community leadership background, I believe that I have some strengths here. Now, I am not as familiar with some of the intricacies of the history of Alpine and some of the detailed issues that other candidates will, of course, be more familiar with. what I can do is come aboard and learn those, get deep into them, ask the questions that I need to. I'm not afraid to do that. But I do come with less experience with the specific Alpine issues. I am definitely a person who does not give up. I'm quite independent. And I did choose Alpine from anywhere in America when we chose to move our family from China a year and a half ago. So having said that, in terms of a specific issue, the only, I suppose, the main thing that I love about Alpine is the fact that it is unique, that it is set back, not just geographically, but I think sort of culturally with some of the other communities. It doesn't just sort of blend into Drape or blend into American Fork. It's its own special place. And I feel strongly about keeping it that way. And that can mean many different things, which I'm sure we can discuss further. But that is one issue that I feel strongly about, is not ever letting Alpine turn into just another suburb. It's special and unique for a reason. And being a newcomer here, I treasure that. And I would really advocate for keeping Alpine strong, but not letting it blend into every other suburb. So that's a little bit of background about me. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Perfect. Thank you, Lori. We're going to move to, once everybody's had a chance to do their introduction, we'll ask council if they have any questions for the individual candidates.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Carol Dean.
Hi, my name's spelled wrong in the packet.
Oops.
It's a common occurrence.
Lon, I can't believe you didn't catch that.
I've lived in Alpine for 24 years, almost, come June 1st. I have raised my kids here. We chose Alpine. Haven't moved out of my house. I'm still here in downtown. Part of the reason I'm running, or put my name in, is because I was planning on running next year. And I've been asked multiple times by multiple people why I haven't run. The time wasn't right for my family. I have one child left in school, and she's really a good student, so she can help manage her own. I mean, she's doing her homework right now. I love Alpine. I've done the Alpine Days Parade 3 different occasions. The first time I volunteered, and the other 6 years I was asked to stay on or come back and take it on. The last time was 2017, and I was asked in the middle of June to bring the parade back to life, and I did. I was even called last year. I was out of town. I was somewhere in the South. I don't know if I was in Texas or in what we call the Swamp Tour on DCI. Alabama, Arkansas, and asked questions on how the parade was running and who they should get for announcers and things like that. Most of my experience lately, I've been a stay-at-home mom for 22 years. Mostly 10 of those years I've substituted in the schools, but I do that when I want to for the classes I want to. I did start going back to school 2 years ago to finish my science education degree. Hopefully one day I will be able to go back and teach science. But mostly I've been home, and I feel like the downtown area and the stay-at-home parent needs to have a voice on the city council also. And I've run the elections for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
So that's all.
Okay, thank you, Carolyn. We appreciate that. Next up is Jessica Smewen. Oh, you're on mute, Jessica.
Okay, I just want to first thank you all. And it sounds like we have kind of a common thread here so far. We came to Alpine the same way. We could have lived anywhere in the country, and we actually had lived in Pennsylvania and Oklahoma and Florida, California. And we were at a point in our life where we knew we wanted to find a community to call home. And so we went on this search to find our home. And it was interesting. We didn't know a single person in town 14 years ago. When we came to Alpine, I guess we didn't Google then. I can't remember like when all of technology took over, and we didn't have phones to map us. So I had printed a little MapQuest paper and flew into Salt Lake. And a friend of ours that lived in California said, "You need to check out Alpine. It's unique. It's a great community." And so we drove in with our MapQuest. And as I thought about this, it was actually 14 years ago this month, almost to the day. And when we drove in, there were kids walking. It was a Saturday. Kids were walking the streets, getting treats from the junction. Baseball was in full swing at Burgess. And the sense, what I remember vividly, it was the sense of community was palpable. And we were hooked. Within, a few months, we bought a home, and my husband, Marty, and 4 children uprooted and came. He didn't even have a job at the time. So there was something about Alpine that pulled us in over the years. I think I've walked and biked every trail. A big draw for us was the sense of community, and also the parks and open space that we have more than fully taken advantage of. And over the years, I've participated in everything from pitch popcorn at the elementary school and the junior high, and random acts of kindness, Alpine days, chairing committees. I've really gotten into this community, gotten involved. I've enjoyed getting to know the city staff over the years. And then most recently, within the last year, participating in Planning Commission has been, a real, just really a treat to be involved and to really take a deep dive into our city code and ordinances. I've really, really enjoyed participating in the Planning Commission, seeing that side of how the city is run. And I feel like as a council member, I could just take those a step further, bring all of my experience to the table, and make a difference. That's my 3 minutes.
Great. You guys are making very efficient use of your time. Thank you, Jessica. Very good. Okay, now we'll switch to the men in the group. It was coincidental that all of the ladies went first, by the way. But Ed, we'd love to hear from you, Mr. Bush.
Sure. I thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. It's now going on 4 years since my wife and I moved to Alpine. And in those 4 years, I've experienced much joy and then recently much sorrow. But Alpine is my home, and I want to use my talents and capabilities to make this an even better community than it is today. Since moving here, I've been active in the community. One of the big things was developing the Alpine Nature Center, which is an effort to help people understand more the beauty in Alpine beyond just the majestic mountains that we have surrounding us. In this capacity, I've organized a dry creek cleanup, informational hikes, aided with the watering of the seedlings that we planted in Lambert Park, made different outside contacts, including contacts in the Utah Department of Natural Resources, and some on the Bonneville Shoreline Trail Committee. And until last year, when my wife's leukemia flared up, I regularly attended all city council and planning commission meetings to understand what was going on in the town. I have a strong background in business, you can see in my resume, where I ran large employee population, large budget organizations. I have a large experience base in government and contractor negotiations also. My education formally is in physics and electrical engineering. And I tend to make decisions on facts and reason, but having run large organizations, I know there are always human and emotional elements that must be taken into account. Alpine continues, I think, to be at a crossroads, wrestling with its rural past and its unique capabilities, but looking to a modern, more suburban future. And with this comes issues of growth, development, traffic, school services, and other areas associated with this. So I feel, it's time to use some of my background, give it back more to the community. I do have some ideas in terms of getting citizens more proactively involved, better relationships with our businesses and developers in Alpine, getting corporations to invest in us, And how do we think about making Alpine an even more beautiful community and not just relying on the surrounding beauty that we have, but inside the city also. So thank you for consideration tonight, and it's great to be here.
Thank you very much, Ed. Well said. Okay, Troy Slade, last up.
All right, thank you very much. Well, my name is Troy Slade, and I grew up in Pleasant Grove, and I remember driving through Alpine and always wanting to live here. And about 17 years ago, we got the chance to move here, so we did. And I have 6 kids, and we've raised them all here in Alpine. And just listening to the rest of you, my story is similar. I mean, we just love Alpine. I mean, it's the best place on earth, the absolute best. I love mountain biking, the trails, and the open spaces as well. And I think that when I think of Alpine and everything that's happening in Utah County, and the growth that's taking place, I think, Silicon Slopes that is happening. I think that Alpine is in a unique position. We are the premier city in the county. And, we're kind of the, I guess you'd say, the Palo Alto of Silicon Valley, and I think that we need to embrace that. And I think that's what most residents really want, is to maintain that. And so I think growth, going forward is really, really important. What kind of businesses we attract, and it's important to attract the right businesses so they don't necessarily create a bunch of traffic, I think, for our community, but they'll generate, sales tax revenue and stuff for us. So that's one of my things that I feel strongly about. Also, just business locations and signage and things like that. I think it's important to get all that right, because I just think we just have a unique opportunity to really have an image to maintain, and to, my experience, and the reason I think I would be really great is I'm an entrepreneur. I started 2 businesses that have been very successful. One of them was called the Mod Bod, so maybe some of you are familiar with that. We started that, and that was very successful. So, and I was the CEO and founder of it. So I think all the skills that come along with running a business like that, budgeting and smart financial decisions, proposals, analyzing opportunities versus costs, minimizing liability, all that kind of stuff that comes along with that, I think is a strength. And also, you'll notice on my resume, which this is kind of an interesting point, is I produced a television show for the past, 11 seasons called The Story Trick. And I really, I thought about this, and I thought, that I think would be a great strength for me. Really, because what we did on that show is we gave people a voice, if you've ever seen that show. And we really connected with people. We related with people, and we were able to ask the right questions to get their concerns out in the open. And I just think all those skills would be just awesome, So I think I could bring a lot of strength as far as that goes. So I think I'll probably use my 3 minutes up.
Okay, well, you borrowed some from some of the other candidates.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Troy. Appreciate that, and well said. So thank you all for those brief presentations. I realize it's not a lot of time to present all your strengths, because you obviously all possess a lot of strengths. But what I'd like to do now is we're going to move on to a Q&A portion. So if members of council have specific questions that they'd like to ask, either to an individual candidate or to all candidates, I'd encourage you to ask those questions now. And then as soon as we leave that phase, when we wrap that up, and I'd like to keep that to 15 to 20 minutes if possible. If we need more time, we can take it. But once we move back past that point, then I think we'll be ready to take our first round of votes. And I will ask for a roll call vote by name call. I'll call out, and please give me the name of your candidate that you would support going into the potentially the next round. So I'll just give a brief explanation of this. if we have a 3-1 or a unanimous vote for one particular candidate, the process will be over at that point. We'll have our nominee. If it goes to less than a 3-1, in other words, a 2-2 or a 1-1-1-1, any of those scenarios, then that'll require a second round of voting, and those who receive the least votes will drop off in that process, and those who retain the largest amount of votes will move forward. That clear to everybody? Okay, good deal. So we'll entertain questions for any of the candidates. Carla? Carla, you're muted.
Before we ask the candidates, I had a question for Charmaine. Was there a deadline for the application, Charmaine? And if there was, what was the date on that?
Charmaine, you're muted. Still muted.
Yes, the deadline was the 23rd of April at 5 o'clock.
Okay.
So we could get it into the packets. So.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, Carla, we can start with you if you have any questions.
Not right now. I'll wait if that's okay.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? Lon?
Yeah, I have some questions. Actually, I'm going to try something here. If I could just share my screen, the questions will be written down here. A few short, quick questions, if that's okay, Mayor.
Sure, you bet. Oh, you just muted again, Lon.
Those are each of the questions I'd like each of the candidates to address, if we could. However you want to approach that, Mayor.
Yeah.
Can you see those questions?
Well, if I want to retain visual on everybody else in the meeting, I cannot see them. I can see them one at a time though if I move things around. So sure.
So we can pull it back down if they want to just look at that and then move, and I can move it off. You just tell me how you want to do it.
Yeah. So Lon, are you going to ask this 3 questions of each candidate?
Yeah, hopefully they are sort of interlinked. So except the first 2 are, and then the third one is more of what they think anyway.
Okay. All right. Can you see those, everyone? Those questions? Okay. All right. So we'll go in the order of the speakers. So Lori, you'll be first to answer the question.
Okay. So would I campaign? Of course, absolutely. I definitely want to get involved. And if I don't have the opportunity at this juncture, in this particular capacity, I will try when the next opportunity comes up. And I would welcome the chance to campaign. That's something I'm actually very interested in. In terms of community support and family support, I don't know if this refers to extended family. I really don't have extended family. I have a sister in Provo and a sister in Chicago, but my family is my 3 children, and I didn't say that at the beginning. They are 16, 15, and 13, so house full of teenagers. And my husband, William, he works in China, so we're out of the box in every possible way. But right before this call, we were all seated. We talk to him daily on WeChat, which is like FaceTime or WhatsApp. And everyone has had advice for me on what to do and not do. So you can't get better support than that. But in all seriousness, my children, because of the way we live, the international experience we've had, Dad living on the other side of the world, I will say they are very, very mature kids, and I have all the support anyone could ever ask for. So I feel very supported in every way there. And in terms of community support, I think in my local ward and neighborhood, I've jumped right in. I actually jumped into Alpine Days the first year we were here by doing the 5K. And this past summer, I had a booth where I promoted my book and talked about my mortgage business, and my family helped me with that. So I think I have lots of community support. In terms of specific goals or vision, I think that, like, who was the last speaker? I think it was Troy. Who said, I think it was Troy, who said he wanted to use his skills and vision, maybe others said that as well, his skills and attributes to serve, to make things better. And I feel like that's what I want to do too. This is sort of, it's an intangible thing, right? Like, we have this skill set, each of us individually, and I feel like many of the attributes I have lend themselves so naturally to a community leadership setting. And because I love Alpine so much and believe this is where we need to be, I would just do everything I could to elevate, to serve. So I suppose my vision is that, just to use everything I have to make things better.
Thank you. Hey, Mayor, if you'd like, if everyone knows what those questions are, I can pull it down. And if they need to look at the questions again, I can pop it back up so we can see everyone.
How about giving me a thumbs up if you've got them, if you got the questions? Carolyn, or I'm sorry, Geraldine, sorry.
It's okay, it's a different name.
It's okay. Jessica, you got them?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, Troy. Yeah, let's go ahead and pull it down, Lon. Thank you. Okay, Geraldine, you're next.
Yes, I would run. I was planning on running anyway next year. I do have my family support, and I've been asked by people in the community why I wasn't running. And mostly, I don't come with an agenda other than a voice for the downtown area. Sometimes we've been overlooked just because there's a lot of older people who served previously and now, you know, don't need to. Other than keeping Alpine a family-friendly location and a voice for downtown, I don't have any other things on my agenda.
Okay.
So yes, I would definitely run and campaign in 2 years. The things I'm passionate about and the future of Alpine, I see taking longer than this 2-year period. So I want to make a longer commitment to creating a long-term vision. You know, Alpine is about 90% built out, and we've got, you know, the home stretch now with this last 10% that can really create that defining moments for who Alpine is going to be in 5, 10, 15 years from now. So that's going to take a lot of hard work, a lot of commitment. And, you know, I'm kind of putting question 1 and 3 together because the vision for Alpine and what I see is, you know, a cohesive plan of what to do with these last large parcels. You know, we have the Bangerter property. As you come into town, that's going to be a defining piece that needs to really have a lot of thought go into, you know, what do we want Alpine to be as you're received into our community. I have a lot of support from my family. They've seen how energized I've been with Planning Commission, the commitment and the dedication I have, and it's important to me. And so they, you know, they fully support a city council position. And as far as in the community, because I have been active, you know, on the political city council side for several years, and then also in the schools, I've gotten, you know, many texts of encouragement that kind of helped, you know, on those days where I was like, I don't know, and then getting those texts of encouragements from the community really helped me make that final decision.
Thank you, Jessica.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Ed.
Yes, yeah, I would be running in 2 years to continue my role in the city. In fact, I was hoping to run last fall when we had a number of spots, but family issues took precedent over that. In terms of support, Family-wise, I'm a single person now, living at home, but I do have a daughter in Provo that's really encouraging me, and I do have my community and neighborhood that has told me to go and do this. I do have a lot of supporters. I think I get from the Alpine Nature Center. We have nearly 300 followers, and I get 1,500 visitors to the site every month that we have. So I think there's a support for me to be on the council. In terms of goals, yeah, I think we're all looking to see how do we make the community even better than the great community that it already is. And I would like to try to encourage us to maybe look as to how do we get Alpine to be looking, I'll call it, making Alpine more beautiful, but what do we do with Main Street? How do we control the traffic? How do we make it more friendly for people to move around and walk around in the city? What do we do with those properties? Not only the ones that we've incorporated, but the ones that are petitioning for annexation also. And what do we do with those? Trail signs and better maps around the city, possibly kiosks. And I think we can get this from corporate sponsors. Not only do we have to pay for it from the city itself. I mean, just in my neighborhood, I think up here in Box Elder and Alpine Cove, we have 4 to 5 CEOs of corporations, and they live in Alpine, for crying out loud, right? We should be able to get their support to do some of these things.
Thank you very much, Ed. Appreciate that. Troy?
Okay, so number 1, yes, I would definitely run again to just continue, the vision that I have. So yeah, I would definitely. Number 2, support. Yeah, in fact, my wife is the one who kind of encouraged me to do this. She's like, oh, you'd be fantastic. So, so she kind of, gave me the nudge to do it. And also, we've been here for 17 years. I know a ton of people in Alpine. We've lived in 3 different homes. I've just left a trail of love wherever I've been, So I think, I don't know. I think I'd have a lot of support if that's what you're asking. And then the goals, I sort of feel like I kind of addressed that a little bit on my opening comments, but just really, I think attracting businesses is a big one. Attracting the right kind of businesses, and while minimizing the traffic. So it has to be the right kind of businesses and the right kind of vision for those businesses. And I think for the most part, we've done a pretty good job of doing that so far. I think there's room for improvement still. And like I said, really, the vision for Alpine, I really think is just the elite community of Utah County. And there's a lot of pieces of the puzzle that kind of go into that. So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Troy. And do we have any other council members who have questions? No questions.
Hey, Mayor, this is Greg here. I think everyone mentioned about preserving what's great about Alpine. I wondered if they could respond to how exactly we preserve the best characteristics of Alpine while representing the best interests of residents and within the sort of the constraints that city powers have and private property owners and so on. I'd like to hear their thoughts on that in terms of balancing all of those competing interests, say between affordability and private rights and the interests of residents and so on.
Great. We'll go in reverse order this time, and please keep your answers to 1 minute or less. Troy?
Okay. Dang, I have the advantage of going last and I could hear everybody else first. So, yeah. So how do we, so the question was, how do we kind of maintain what we have? And I think that is what is attractive about Alpine is maintaining maintaining what we do have, because we don't want to lose that small town feel. That's what's so cool about it. But I really kind of think, like, I don't have those answers right at this moment to give you. I think, researching other communities that we want to kind of become like, that are in advanced stages, beyond where we are, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Troy. Ed.
Yeah, that's probably a topic you could go on for more than a minute in here, right? But it is a tough balance. I mean, people don't want to see development. They don't want to see things happen, but there are property rights and people that own property, and they have the right, if they're doing things within the ordinances of the city, to proceed with them. I think in some of the cases, I think with developers as well as businesses, I think we need to negotiate a little bit harder. When business comes to the city or a developer wants to do something, it's to their benefit to make the city a better place to live also, and not destroy what we have, the community feel, the beauty of the hillsides, even some of the rural things that maybe we'd be able to save along the ways and dedicate or donate to the city. So I think it's a balance that I think we have to move forward. I think it's inevitable in some cases because of property rights but I think we have to negotiate and work hard to get more things out of, when people want to develop, more things out of them to make the city a better place to live.
Thank you, Ed. Jessica?
So we do have a master plan for the city that is very tied to these core values and the overall preserving of parks and open spaces. I think we use that, as our guide, and we overlay our city ordinances. Now we have to remember those are our city ordinances, so we can control what happens in our city. So we need to be really careful when we consider those annexations and what that would look like, because that's when we can't apply what we want Alpine to be. And we need to make sure that we do that in a responsible manner. And then as far as, the trails and those things, we could build a coalition. I've worked closely with the Utah Office of Outdoor Recreation, the National Park Service. I mean, there's a lot of consensus and coalition we could build out there. The governor's doing a 1,000-mile trail campaign. There really are a lot more resources that we can tap into as a community to focus on those.
Great. Thank you, Jessica. Where'd Caroline go? Sorry,
Here.
you moved around a little bit on my screen. So
Yeah,
there you are.
things moved. Keeping Alpine a family-friendly place. I think putting the business district in one area was a good move. Following our master plan and sticking with our city ordinances. I know that as we annex, we do have to make sure that we're able to do things like get our emergency services up there as needed. I know that that's been an issue with the up past the cove. Other than that, parks, trails, people come here, they choose to live here because we're a small town. It's part of the reason I like to do the elections, is because people keep coming in that I may not have seen because our kids are different ages. School boundaries have changed, ward boundaries, state boundaries, whatever. And they come in to vote, and then we can, have a discussion and catch up.
Yep.
So.
Great. Thank you, Carolyn. And Lori.
Okay. Well, it sounds like just through this discussion and just hearing everyone's responses, we've definitely zoomed in on what a key issue is. And I think people have used the word balance, and that's what it is. It will be a tricky balance, but it's one that we can figure out. And I agree with everything that's been said. The only thing that I would add is, I think Alpine is another reason that it is so unique, is that people really do care about Alpine as an entity, and they are quite involved. But I still think there are people who don't realize that they have a voice and that they can take part in leadership and that it doesn't have to be city council. So I think Jessica talked about a coalition, and I was thinking just even smaller, just at this very community level, task forces, small groups, assigning, inviting people to take a leadership role in this area and forming a discussion, gathering opinions. I mean, just at that very basic level to sort of make sure we are hearing everyone's voices and make sure people do feel like they can give their input. And like Troy said about how many CEOs live in your neighborhood, I mean, I think a lot of CEOs live in Alpine, and there are so many resources here that maybe we're not utilizing to as great a degree as we could. So I see that that would be one of the key components in finding this balance, is mobilizing the community, empowering them even more than they are, and not being afraid to draw in people who might have a little more influence or a little more that they can contribute via, whether that's talents, time, or financial or connections. So, yeah.
Great, thank you very much, Lori. Okay, any other questions from council?
From my perspective, I think both Greg's and the last comment from Lon's were my questions, so my questions were answered.
Okay, great, thank you. Carla?
I actually had a question for all of them. I was wondering, so there's a prospective road through Lambert Park that, you know, that I know that there's some residents and a developer has wanted to put through. And I was wondering where the candidates stood on that issue, whether you were for putting a city road through Lambert Park or leaving it as a secondary access road.
Thank you, Carla. We'll go back to the old order with Lori first.
Okay. I think my first answer would be leaving it as a secondary access road, not because I don't think there's room to some extent there for development, but I wouldn't, my first response wouldn't be, let's make a city road through there if we don't have to.
Okay. Geraldine?
Keep it a secondary road. It gives us the access that we need for emergency vehicles and stuff like that, but doesn't take away the park's use as a park.
Good, thank you, Carolyn. Jessica?
Keep it as a secondary road, especially in the last 6 weeks. I go up there in the evenings and it is packed. I mean, we need to be forward thinking again, and what is the vision of Alpine and what do we want it to look like 5, 10, 15 years down the road? And this may not be the first time we're going to be faced with a world health crisis. And so we need to protect our parks, our open spaces. I'd even like to take it a step further. I know in another development, they are putting up a crash gate to deter even further street traffic, cars coming through. So I think we need to maybe also look at that now that there's some pavement.
Thank you, Jessica. Ed?
Yeah, I've actually changed my opinion over the years on this. When I first moved in here, I thought when I looked at the city plan, and I don't know if it's been changed or not, that was a plan that was to be a paved road. But over the years that I've lived here and appreciated Lambert Park, I think the better use of that area is to keep it as a secondary access with a couple of caveats. One, there was a time where that secondary access got pretty unmaintained from water drainage and things. So I think we need to maintain that so that we can actually use it as a secondary access. And I think also if we do, we have to look at making some improvements to Grove Drive to handle the Lambert Park Estates activity that is going in terms of Utah County. I'm especially worried at there's a small culvert over Dry Creek and the school buses do not come up all the way because of the steepness of the hills. We have kids getting off of there and going across that culvert. And right now it's not too big a problem. You add 60 more houses in into Lambert Park Estates and people moving back and forth. I'm worried that we're going to be putting some children in danger. So I think we need to make some improvements for the access of the upper area in order to maintain that Lambert Park Road in its current condition as a secondary access.
And just to clarify, could I have each candidate, I think the original question was paving it, because it can be still maintained as a secondary access without paving it, or you could pave it and make it a secondary access. So just one word answer, same order. Lori?
I think if it's going to be real access, probably paved.
Okay. Carol Dean?
I don't know.
Okay. That's a fair answer. Jessica?
So currently it's got road base down and it is plowable during the winter and it's completely accessible by vehicles. So as it is, I would leave it as it is. Again, it takes away from even another step away from the beauty and the nature of that park.
Okay. Ed?
No pavement, maintain it as it is.
Okay. Troy?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with the last two. Don't pave it, leave it just like it is.
Yes.
Awesome.
Okay. All right, good. Carla, did you have any other questions?
Nope, that was it.
Okay. All right. Jason, you're clear. Gordon, Greg, are you good? Any other questions?
Yeah, that's all. No, thank
Okay.
you.
Lon?
I'm good.
Okay.
Good answers to my questions.
Yeah.
Glad
Yeah.
they're all going to run. I am really glad they're all going to run.
Okay, good, good. All right, is there anything else that anyone feels they need to say before we go into the voting phase? So with that, I'm going to give everybody, let's take like a 2-minute break. If you want to go over your thoughts, your notes, and kind of decide where you are. And then we'll come back in 2 minutes and take a vote, a roll call vote. All right. Okay, as soon as Carolyn gets back and Jason, we will get started. Okay. I will start the voting process now. Again, I will ask for a roll call vote. I will call out and ask for a response by giving me the name of the person that you support. And then we'll take it from there. If need be, if we need to go a little further. Okay, starting with, I guess I'll go in order here, Jason Thielen.
You know, my hard thing is I do appreciate Troy and Lori putting their name in. I do put a little more weight behind those who have served in the city so far, and I think Carol-Dean, Jessica, and Ed have done that. Carol-Dean probably, I don't know if she knows how, I don't know if she feels how appreciated she is because she's been doing it forever. And Ed's done a lot in that short amount of time. In making my choice, I feel there's some benefits in raising one's kids here and seeing your kids grow through the school system. But I also think there's a weight in time spent learning the development code, master plan, understanding that inside and out. So I'd probably pick Jessica right now. Jessica.
Okay, so that's one vote for Jessica. And Carla.
Yeah, and just to reiterate what Jason said, I do feel that experience and time put forth in serving the community and being involved is a big plus. And for Troy and for Lori, I strongly encourage you to get involved in the city and the events, and whether, there are committees, there's a trail committee, there's, if there's always, it seems like randomly there'll be openings on the planning commission. And I feel like that's such a great step. At least for me, I felt like that really helped me understand so much more of what was going on in the city, and especially just the intricacies of the master plan and the city ordinances and what we went through to create those ordinances and why, and the reasons behind them. It kind of gives that depth. I remember when Ed came before a couple of years ago and applied that, and I don't know if you remember, I said, I loved that, you had done the Alpine conservation, and that you've been working so much with the Lambert Park. And, I reached out to you and said, hey, there's an opening. I really think you should do it. And I totally understand. You had circumstances way beyond your control, and I am so sorry. But I think my final vote will be for Jessica because she's got the experience and she's put the time in. So for now, that would be my vote, Jessica Smuin.
Okay. All right. So that's 2 votes for Jessica. And let's go to Greg.
Yeah, and thanks to all the candidates for making this a very difficult choice. I think we've had 5 very great options here. I think Ed Bush, based on his experience and the service that he's put into the city, is a great candidate, would be a great council member. So Ed Bush.
Okay.
For me.
Ed Bush.
Thank you.
All right. And Lon.
Yeah, I've been through this type of situation several times now over the course of the 6 years. And in fact, I was sitting in the seat of your U5 over 6 years ago. I know what the process is like. I am really thrilled that you all are willing to serve. So excited that that is on your mind and in your heart. I could feel that in your hearts. Each one of you have expressed a great love for your fellow man here in this community, and I appreciate that, sincerely appreciate that. It is a difficult task. The reason I asked the questions I did is in a couple of years when you run, you definitely need the support of those around you as you participate in this process. This is a difficult process right now where there's only 3 of us that will decide, where in 2 years there's several thousand that would decide on that. So I appreciate your willingness to be involved. I will vote for Ed Bush for some of the reasons that Greg has made. I do understand the importance of having some experience, yet I personally went into this 6 years ago with no experience, and I could see it going a couple different ways with the different people. Each one of you will bring different strengths, but I'm going to vote for Ed Bush right now.
Okay, great. Well, we have a tie between Ed and Jessica, and I'd like to reiterate the words of council that you guys this has been a great field to select from. We're not finished with the process yet, but I will say that it makes me happy to see how many qualified people are ready to jump in and be part of the Alpine process and preserving our great community. You're all right. Y'all hit it on the head. We have a fantastic community here. It is unique. It's special. There are a lot of things that threaten that, but there are a lot more things, I think, that support that moving forward. I think everybody wants to keep this little pot of gold that we have here. We just love our community. And so that's a great feeling to have, especially knowing that others are willing to jump up and lead and take the same stance. And so to those of you who will not be part of the process moving forward, thank you. And keep your eyes peeled and answer your phones, because there will be opportunities in the near future. We have some planning commission posts. We have, as Carla mentioned earlier, we have trail committees. We have all sorts of stuff that can be kind of the beginning of your experience in Alpine City government. And so happy to extend that to you as we move forward. So thanks again. We'll move forward now with Ed and Jessica as our 2 candidates. We're going to do a revote. It's quite easy to expect that it may come out with the same result, but I wanted to give everybody a chance to rethink and change their vote if they felt like that was necessary or something that they would like to do. So I'll give you another few minutes to think about that, or a few seconds to think about that, and then we'll move on.
Hey, Mayor, point of clarification. So are we only voting between the 2 candidates then? Is that correct?
Yes, I apologize. Yeah, I apologize if I didn't make that clear. We're down to 2 candidates now, which is Ed and Jessica. Okay, before we move forward with the second round of voting, it should be noted that in this round, we only have 2 candidates, so there is a tie-breaking process. I would rather have us get to a unanimous decision, but if needs be, the mayor does have the tie-breaking vote in this situation. And with that, I'd also like to give the opportunity to council to ask any additional questions they might have of either Ed or Jessica. Anyone? Okay, then we will do a roll call vote again, starting again with Jason.
Jessica.
Okay, Carla.
Jessica Struan.
Okay, Greg.
Still Ed Bush. Yeah.
Okay, and Lon.
Ed Bush.
Bush. All right. Okay, well, that makes it tough. I will tell you that this is not a fun seat to be in this kind of situation, because I know and admire both Ed and Jessica for many reasons. I think both are very, very sharp minds and have done a lot for the community already. They're involved right now, and I think that there's just too much good to be said in one meeting about both. And so this makes it particularly difficult because I think either one would do a fantastic job in the position. I feel like there's opportunity to serve the community in different capacities. Bearing that in mind, I would strongly consider Ed for a number of positions in the city. With Jessica's current experience on Planning Commission, having been through the ordinance process and through elections and things like that, I think I'm going to go ahead and vote for Jessica. But that is hopefully would not be interpreted as a lack of support for you, Ed. I think you're terrific. And so Jessica would be my tie-breaking vote. And with that, David, is there anything else that we need to clarify?
No, the first one that gets 3 votes wins. The mayor does have a right to vote in case of a tie. It seemed that it was a clear 2-2 tie, so the mayor may vote on that. Her term begins as soon as Charmaine can take the time to swear her in, and she serves until the next municipal election, when it'll be like it was last time with Jason, where someone's going to have to. Well, I guess this is, yeah, because Judy had just been elected, so they'll have to run for the remainder of the 2-year term if they want to stay in. So,
correct. Okay. All right. Once again, my thanks goes out to each one of you for participating in the process. And please, you all have my cell number, and probably most of the councils as well. So don't be afraid to make contact frequently. Thank you very much. And you're welcome to stay on for the meeting if you'd like, because it is quite the adrenaline rush. You might need to lay down after, but okay. So we'll move forward. Jessica, congratulations.
Thank you.
And we welcome you to the City Council. We're very happy to have you. And Ed, I know we haven't seen the last of you, nor any of the rest of you, by the way. Thank you. We're going to move on to our next action item for Three Falls. Austin, do you want to take this one?
Troy, let me
Yes.
interrupt here. When
Yes.
do you want me to swear Jessica in? Do you want her to come into City Hall, swear her in here? I could probably, if it's okay with David, I could do it right now.
yeah,
Or
it'd probably be
whatever.
best. It'd probably be best to swear in right now so she can participate as a council member in the rest of the meeting.
Okay.
Do you want to do that, Jessica?
You're muted, Jessica.
You're nodding.
It's going to be hard for me to learn that. Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, it's very simple. Just raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I, Jessica,
I, Jessica,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this state,
and the Constitution of this state,
and that I will discharge the duties
and that I will discharge the duties
of my office with fidelity.
of my office with fidelity.
Okay. And if you'll stop by City Hall tomorrow sometime, just give me a call. I'll have you actually sign this and
Okay,
I'll notarize it.
okay.
So you're good to go.
Right. We have a full quorum. Thank you for clarifying that, Charmaine. I didn't realize we were able to take care of that tonight.
Was Jessica in our meeting now and voting with us right now?
Yes. Yeah, Jessica, do you have a full packet?
I don't.
Okay, if you jump onto the city website.
Okay, then I do have access because I did review it. Is that the full packet? You
Yeah.
haven't gotten any-
It'll be on the website.
Okay,
Yep.
yeah. Okay,
Yep.
I'm gonna go grab the iPad and do that.
Okay.
Let's give you a,
All right.
a quick second to do that. Okay, why don't we get going on that, Austin?
Okay, so I'll go ahead and introduce this. This is Three Falls subdivision, Plat G. So this is it's a plat amendment. As you all recall, Three Falls has gone through the final approval process. But as it's been developed over the years, there's been some changes. They're now working towards the final phase of the development. And as they're getting there, there's a few changes that need to be made. And so what this plat amendment is proposing is essentially 5 different things here. So there is a change to the open space that is there. If you're all aware, Three Falls does have quite a bit of open space there. In fact, we're talking about 304 acres of open space that's in the plat amendment that we're looking at tonight. The open space will change a little bit. So there will be 2.09 more acres of public open space after this plat amendment. And there would be about 1 acre less of private open space. Some of the main reasons for why they're doing these changes are they recently did a fault line study to see where the fault lines are located on this property. Up in that area, a number of lots, they ended up changing where the building envelopes were. So, the area where a home can be built. And also there were a couple lots where they adjusted the boundary line or lot lines for those lots to taking into consideration where the fault lines are. In addition to that, there's a cul-de-sac that has been added, and I'm going to go ahead and pull this up on the screen so we can get a visual. If you'll look here on the right-hand side of the screen, there's a red circle. That's the cul-de-sac. That's a turnaround that would have to be there for emergency vehicles. If they're eventually that stubs into a secondary access road that connects to the east side of Alpine. And so as a requirement for the fire engines and emergency vehicles, whatnot, that turnaround is necessary. And so this plat amendment would allow for that cul-de-sac to be put there. And finally, this plat amendment is also being adjusted for the city booster station. And that site has been, that layout has been finalized. And so this plat amendment would help with that. And so one big change, if you'll look here on the screen, is you'll see where my mouse is in the middle. There's a strip of that used to be private open space that went through here. And we actually do have quite a few trails that zigzag back and forth through this area here. And so what's being proposed is that area would now become public open space. And thus all of the trails would be on public land. And so that's kind of a nice thing to clean up. It's kind of strange that this was private to begin with, but just looking at it this way, staff thinks that it makes more sense, given with all the trails that we have there, to have that as public open space. And I think that's kind of a recap of what changes there are. I know that Will is representing the Three Falls group, and he's on the meeting here with us right now. So, he can help answer some specific questions if the council has any of those.
Okay, thank you, Austin. Council, any comments?
I've got a question. Yeah, I've got a question, Mayor. I was wondering, Austin, I know I asked you if there was any way to get an overlay, and you said you weren't able to do it, but is there any way we can get an idea of where the trail is and if it crosses this this plat to the other side, to the north side of the road?
Okay, let's see here. I'm pulling up the trail map right now. Put that on the screen. And so which area are you specifically asking about?
Where does the trail cross the road on the to the north side? Because I know it goes through, because I've been through it. I just can't remember exactly where on this plat map.
Okay, so on the north side, I'm just pulling it up here. So there's a couple different connections. In the north, you'll see right up
Right
here.
there, okay.
So this is that strip that I was talking about that's currently private open space.
Right.
Up here is the north connection. And so that connects you on this trail that goes into Corner Canyon.
So right where
Drape.
you've got the mouse, is that, oh, no, just to the north of it?
Mhm.
Is that, so it's also going through private open space up there, is that correct?
I believe that a lot of that is
That's public.
Yeah, let's.
Carly, you mean right where it leaves the road and comes into
Crosses onto the
yellow-
north side, correct?
that yellow area.
It looks like the lighter yellow, that's private open space. So the trail's going through private open space?
There were a few spots where it did go through private open space, yes.
So do we have recorded easements for those?
Yes.
We do?
Yeah, I believe there are easements.
Actually, Austin, I don't believe we do. This is something I talked with Will about within 30 minutes of this meeting starting. And I believe he's on here and can address that, but that's something that we need to talk about and make some adjustments on. The trail was put in where it made sense.
Right.
And I haven't been on these trails, but what I've heard is they're fantastic. And so there needs to be a couple of things addressed here with those.
Yeah, we discussed the easement issue as well earlier today. And there are some areas where, as Shane said, the trails were put in the best possible location. And oftentimes or in some areas it crossed over, but it made a lot of sense to do that.
It's very easy in this large area up here to lose your bearings on property lines and the oak brush and everything. So, Will, do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Our goal ultimately was to make sure that we kept as many of the trails as possible within public open space. It just makes it easier without easements and stuff. And then if you have to tweak your trail a little bit or something, you can do it without, it's yours. And so you're not having to go back and readjust easements and stuff. And as Shane pointed out to me, you can see the one area that we're changing right now, back here from your mouse right there, the big where it goes back and forth. That area we became aware of had a lot of trails in it. And so we felt like this would be a good time while we were doing this to make that be a public open space, so that could be. We weren't aware, not having overlaid this on the map, from there going to the east, we weren't aware that much of that trail was actually on private open space. I don't think there's an issue from our point of view to work with you guys and try and make this work better and maybe take some more of that ground that's in private right now and make it go public. I'd love to work with you on that.
Okay. Will, I was going to say, to reiterate what Shane says, the trails are fantastic. They're beautiful. You guys have done a great job. Now, if we can just keep the horses off of it after a rainstorm, that would be even more perfect.
The trail committee was going to handle that. We have all sorts of signs that say stay off and wet, but due to the fact we can't get together, we haven't put them up yet. But you'll see them over in Lambert Park and over here that we've got them. We're ready to go. But I agree with you. I raked that whole thing all the way to the bathroom last year after Troy saw me there. I spent a day raking that dang thing, trying to get it back in shape after horses nailed it.
Let's just say that I had a big guilt trip that day because I worked with Will in the morning. I thought we were done. So I went and grabbed my bike and started biking up the trail. And there was Will still bent over working on that trail. Thank you, Will.
And it looks much better this year than last year.
Yeah. So I guess my question is, Will and Shane, do we have time in this meeting to go through each individual area that should be made public, that's where trails exist on private open space? Because it seems like that's a bit of a process before we can actually end up with something we're comfortable with moving forward.
I think we could, Mayor, do this fairly simply, is that there's three main areas. The one on the north side of Three Falls Trail, which goes across the road right where the mouse is. That area right there is easy to do. We can get that one handled, no problem. We come back to the west there, or south there. That area you just got, the majority of it. This other east side of it, we'll work with that and get that out. And so I just think if me and staff get together on this, we can get it to Kyle, the engineer, and he can make those adjustments and get the plat ready to go.
So I've got a question. Will, the piece that I noticed that changed on the plat map on the northeast side, I guess central east side, it's a vertical sliver
Yeah.
that is being switched from public to private open space. That's not a fault line issue. What's the reason for that little sliver change?
That's a slope, and because it goes directly in between those homes, we discussed this well over a year ago in a council meeting, and we're at the consensus from that it would be going to private because it's way up. It looks like it's down in the bottom when you see it on a map like this, but I'm happy to walk in if you want it. It's definitely a major slope issue, and it would be right against the building envelope on lot 48, which is the east lot. And we discussed how this creates a real issue when we try and make those kind of trails. Now, having that said, I made sure we still had a good loop that took us all the way through. And that's why we were pushing so hard with the Croft, because this loop ties into that whole thing. And we would have an amazing set of trails if we can finish that.
Austin, can you zoom out a little bit on the trail map, pretty please?
Yeah, I was thinking that was located where the TA is, but is it lower than that? It's just a
It's
little.
right about there.
It's lower. You mean over here where the TA is? That's, yes, not
Oh,
that
yeah.
TA.
No,
That one. Nope. The one up in the upper right-hand corner.
Yeah,
There you go.
it's below that. It's the vertical sliver
right,
below that.
right there. It's between lot 47 and 48.
Yeah.
Right where you were, Austin.
Okay.
Now, Will, I know that is supposed to tie into Lehigh. Is it, do I have my bearings straight there?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Lehigh wasn't there when this map was made. There was no Lehigh.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm saying. We think we've actually done an incredible amount to make this a lot better. And even without it, we've done more trails than we were required. And we've put them in areas that we think will make it easier for people to work with. And there's not a real good connection point, as you see. There's down there where the little line is, there's a big detention pond that wasn't being shown on these maps. And so it goes through this detention pond to get there anyway. And then it has to be right up against lot 49 and 50 to get into where it would get there. And then so you bug those guys, then you come in between 47, 48. But for what reason? We're getting where we want to be, and we've done more than we've been asked, way more. And so, and the other thing that's an issue is lot 47. So let's call it the east side, or the west side is 47, lot 48, the east side, that's owned by the same guy. And he's planning to only build on 47. So we would just be not trespassing, it's hard. We'd be going right through his space with what? To just create a problem, because that's all we'd be doing. And let me give you an example why this is so crazy. How many of you have been over on the new Croft Trail?
I'm going to ask you to help me ride that trail, Will.
I
Hey,
have.
Carla, you'll know what I'm talking about. As you walk along that trail right now, and I brought this up when the trail was being built because I couldn't find a way to get around it. There's one home that has floor to ceiling windows, and the trail is just high enough above it that you have a view of everything that goes on in that house. And from the day we walked that the first time, I said, this will be a problem. This will be hard for people. And it is terrible. Those people now got to buy blinds and everything where they've lived with this open space. But we would do that twice as much with this trail here. For what benefit? We still don't get anywhere different. We don't get any more. We still get what we have without it. And so, and the main reason we originally had it was to have these people get down to the main trail. We're trying to enhance 50, 51, 47, 48, so they could easily access the trail. Not necessarily to create a different kind of loop through there, because like I say, it's right up on the side hill. You guys are welcome to come look at it. I'll show you where it is. It's clear up on the side hill, and it doesn't enhance our trail system at all.
Maybe I
Right,
can.
I just didn't understand it by looking at it. I understood why some of the other things were happening, but that one.
I
didn't.
appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Carla. Jason?
So it's just the one thing I'm trying to look at, Will, is obviously the citizenry likes trails. They also like access to the North Mountains. As I'm looking at this development here, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's only one way in the entire development to access those North Mountains. This was.
What are you saying, Jason? I'm not sure what you mean. There's only one way. There's multiple ways.
What I'm trying to look at is at the public open space. There's only one spot right up there, right above the pond in this whole subdivision that gives you access to the North Mountains. Everything else, it seems like, is cut off from people coming up, driving up the road and saying, I want to hike up that mountain.
No, in reality, Jason, after looking at this, we've found the very best place there is, and that's right there by Slane Rock. And you can either go up that and go to Draper, or you can go up and hit up into the trails which you can't do, by the way, really, because they're Lehigh and they're managed by them. But the point I'm making is that if you're going to north, Carla, it's the trail that you wanted to access, right up by my water tank. You can go right up there, and you can go all the way to First Hemingog, Second Hemingog, if you have permission from Lehigh to be on their property. The rest of it's Forest Service, and so you can, anywhere along Three Falls Trail, along that north, you're welcome to access the Forest Service, but it's not, until you get clear to the west end, not very accessible, because it's pretty dang steep all along that whole. This isn't the place where people access. Over all the years I've been here, that's not a place I ever went to access North Mountain, ever. But the one trail that some people have, which it's steeper than heck, is right by my water tank, and you can get there on this trail. Takes you right to it.
And the water tank is just right there of the other side of the pond, right?
It's no, Jason, it's up on the hill. It's way up right by the Forest Service line.
Will you show me where it is, Austin?
Yeah, where's that trail map again, Austin?
Yeah, let me pull up the trail map.
You just point to where the.
Okay, see where the TA is, Jason, that you asked about before?
Yeah.
Right there. See, the tank is above that. See that trail that goes there?
Okay, how would someone access? I mean, I'm looking for ways to get to the mountains, to the trails, to people to hike, as opposed to just in this whole thing having one. Are you saying that there's a trail that will fall? Austin, walk me through the trail where it would be coming off the road to get to that water tower.
It's right there at the TA.
Okay, so how do you get from the road to the TA? I mean,
there's a road up there. There's a road there, Jason. You can drive your car.
Great. Let me ask this Austin again and see if he can do it. Austin, take the hand and mark where the road is up to the water tank.
To the water tank.
Come over to the end of the cul-de-sac and go right
there.
up that line. Whoop, whoop, yep, right up there, right there. There's the road. See it?
So that
Jason, see the road?
Well, obviously you can't see very well on this thing right here, but so you're saying right down the middle of the property line there's
that property line has easement across it. There's a road there, right there, right there. Okay. Keep going. Keep going. Go up above, go up, go up, go up. See? Right there.
That little hook?
Yeah. That's in, guys.
So that would
go drive it right now.
That could be the access from that side.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's 10 times better access than we've ever had. And it's awesome. If you want to, you can drive. Some people want to drive. Personally, I'd rather bike it or hike it. But someone wants to drive, they can catch it right there. It's actually moved up. Just see where it how it kind of has that drop in it. Oh, keep what you had up just a little bit, Austin, so I can explain it a little easier. Blow it up a little bit. Boop.
Hey, Austin, it might be helpful to put the county parcel map up with
that will help, because what's this not showing, Jason? What's this not showing? See that line there, it's not showing 50, it's not showing lot 57. The trail stays just above 57 and hooks into that hook.
Wait, so Will, are you saying that even at, so the road in that cul-de-sac, that road is going to stay after the homes are built? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's the
between
access
two
to the,
lots?
that's the
So I
access to the city water tank.
And that's public
Right there.
open, that's a public road.
That's a, not, I wouldn't call it a road, but it's your trail, it's your road. I guess it's a road, but it's the lane. I mean, I don't want it to misrepresent somebody thinking it's a 54-foot road. It
Right,
isn't. It's a
but anyone can-
20-foot access. Yeah, you can drive up it.
But
It's
anyone
graded.
can access it
Sure.
in the community, like.
Yeah, we
you
have a
don't have
gated,
to be.
it goes through, most of it goes through public open space.
So
Yeah, but you have a very thin line of private open space though. So,
That's behind 57.
right, but if you're gonna access that, you're like, oh, you can go up that road. Let's say you're biking up that road to get to the water tank, okay?
Yeah,
Just
great.
as an example, I'm just trying to walk through this. So if you're going through and you're going through that dirt road, it looks like I have to cross private open space to get up there. Am I wrong?
Right now you do. Right now you do go, and that's one that I would do by easement because your city already has an easement. That is right on the edge of 57, but you can see, you can go right up, get it, and go up there. There's a big area up above that the trail comes right into it now. If you've ridden that trail, it comes right, oh, let's see. Austin, move, yeah, come now, slowly come back to the top right there. If you've been there in the last few days, I just wrote it. It's right there, and you can either go up to the trail, up to the tank, and go to North Mountain as far as you want, or you can go down through the Lehigh one, or you can do it just another way back through. Either way, or you can go down the roads if you want. If you want to ride road, you can go down that. I'm praying you won't right now because I want to bring up something before we finish this discussion about what we're dealing with right now. Since everybody decided it's hiking and biking season, we're getting wiped out up there. But they're welcome to. We don't stop them. We just ask them not to get killed as they walk in behind the backhoe and the haul trucks and stuff. We're saying, guys, you're welcome to come here, but you're going to get hurt because they have no, I guess the word sense. I don't want to be rude, but in reality, they have no sense. They will actually today, 3 ladies pulled up behind a backhoe. Now, behind a backhoe, you can't see anything. Well, he has no idea they're there. He turns around, and all of a sudden, there's 3 ladies. I was standing on the side of him and was able to slow him down before he swung around to pick up the piece of pipe. It's a construction zone. I mean, it would be like driving down Pioneer Road right now. People have got to pay attention. But anyhow, Carla, in answer to your question, yes, you can drive right up there. In fact, we use some of the chips and we're hoping to get some more chips on it for you as a city thing, just an extra thing we're trying to do to make it more passable, better and easier for you to get up to. But yes, you can get up there.
And Will, why did you say that, we're swapping some public for private? Why did you say that this particular small little dirt road here that you wouldn't swap that one, but you'd only do an easement? What's the reasoning behind that?
Just because here's the issue. See how tight it is against that building envelope right there to the left of it? That way we just help people remember to stay on the trail and that there isn't a great big public area. Just above that. Yeah, the next lot, Austin, 57. See how close you are to 57? That it's not showing up as a lot right there on this map for some reason, but it's that area that's got the private open space around it, Jason. If we don't do that, they can come into it from the west, from multiple ways. And if the people are there, that would be best if they just realize they're on private. We're dealing with guys with unbelievable stuff right now up there with the people we've given them 500 acres, but for some reason, they only want to be on the 1 acre that's ours. And it's crazy. And so in that particular area, I would just use our split rail fencing along that road to designate, or these people could fence it, I guess. And if these people fence it, then I don't have a problem if it goes public. But if they haven't fenced it, and then we got to at least have some type of boundary. And if it's public, then I can't really boundaryize it. I can if I do the other and just let people know this is private open space. Fine, you're welcome through it, but this is private open space. That's all, just protection. If you were living there, I guarantee that's what you'd want. Just so people can not just, they seem to cut wherever they want. Well, you all know. I don't need to tell you. You've seen it.
And I think it's hard to make this decision in a Zoom meeting because, like, I would agree that if it makes sense to get this in private space and public space and make it private, well, the reasons you're talking about, it seems like a nice little swap would be to pull this one around and make that up. Give the city at least ability to control that one on a public space. When it's private, I just have some concerns, even with an easement.
And again, Jason, if that's a big hang up to you, it's not, I'm fine. I'm not trying to have a battle. I mean, I continue to give. And at some point, you know, I'd certainly love to see somebody else on this other side of this discussion be willing to give something. But you know what? If that's a big deal to you, Jason, let's do it. It's not a big deal. I'll get over it. I'm trying to finish up, be done, record, be finished. And if that's a biggie, that's fine. I mean, I just gave you 2 acres of open space, just a minute, not because I was asked to, because when I looked at the map, I thought it was an important thing and it would be in the long-term thing when Will's not here that can happen. If that's the same, if you feel the same way about that, okay.
I appreciate it, Will. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. Carla, any further question?
No.
Okay, Greg, do you have any input?
Yeah. Austin, could you pull up that other view from the packet that shows the changes?
The packet map.
Yeah, so going down, can you scroll down a bit there? So I guess one of the other changes was, I think it's the next page. So this other change was here. Are we, so go, an inch to the right there. Is this, this is removing an access to the kind of this interior area? Is that right? So today that was public, but it's now private. Is that what we're seeing off of that road? Just so, the one to the west there.
This here.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, that's going from public to private. Just because there's no access really through there. It's a steep hill. It's just one of those pieces we had. And it's just a small piece that's doing it there.
So from the road there, it's a steep hill. It's kind of hard to see on this.
Yeah, unfortunately this doesn't have it, but it is. If you go up there and look, you drop right off the hill. The other lot that fronts is clear up here on the top. It's 42. The one in black is 37. And then next to it is 42. That lot's frontage is clear up on this road. And then there's no other. A lot of times the reason something gets in open space, Greg, back in this scene, is because we couldn't put it in a lot. Because of steepness, the requirement was you could only have so much of steep in it, and we couldn't do it. We just couldn't get it in there. So that's what we had to do. So see how far 42 is? And it would have, you can see that doesn't make the ideal shape of what you'd want a lot to be. But if we did anything else, taking anything to the west of that, that slope area there was so sloped, we couldn't even do it. It put it over the requirement to have flatter areas. That's what Shane and I were talking about this today. A lot of times when you see these spaces around here, they are in open space, private open space, because of the slope, and to give just a little protection because there is so much public, so people can have a little break before they're standing back in somebody's backyard.
So thanks. And so can we look at the trail map there? So I saw that trail, it connects back to the road past the new cul-de-sac, right? It comes.
It goes down and hooks.
Yeah, clear down there.
It hooks out at our second entry, Greg. Clear down at the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And to clarify, and you know, I don't know it as well as you know, certainly, yeah, you know, you will. The public can just come up here and park on either side of the road, you know, up by where that access was, to, you know, go hike up there. Is that how it works, or is there limited access in terms of where they park and go on foot?
Great question, Greg. We've created two areas, the TA that you see here, and then if you zoom down and go to the left, down a little bit, we've created and paved and put a trailhead in and a bathroom in and landscaping and everything. And 27 cars can park in that particular deal. Again, we put those things in so people could access it. The question, you ask a great question. One of the things is the trail committee that we deal with all the time is as trails get built, we've got to create public parking areas for them. Because if we don't, we soon don't make very good neighbors. Because if it was in front of your house, like, oh, well, a perfect example over by where you live is the elementary school and the junior high school. What are the first thing the neighbors have all said over there? Paint it red. This is driving us crazy. We can't get out of our driveways. We can't back up. We can't see. So really, in reality, I hope that I didn't just waste a lot of money and put a parking lot and a bathroom and another area in to have people just park all along the road, because I can promise you in the future, as more people get here and live here, if that's the case, that poor city council will just get driven crazy, because there's no place in town where people love people to come and just park and then leave their car for an hour, 3 hours,
Sure.
4 hours, and go off somewhere. So that's why you're seeing more TAs surround the map, and we did too in ours, hoping to make this not such an issue.
Okay, so
yes, they can, but no, I hope they don't.
Will, the only place I've been able to, that I've parked when I've gone up there is at that lower parking lot that you're just talking about over by your booth.
Yeah.
Guard booth. Where, could you point out, Austin, the other parking areas that are available so people have other options besides at the bottom?
You got the one up top by the tank.
Right up there, and that's it?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the two.
All the TAs or THs would be access or trail parking areas.
What is a P? Is that private open space?
Public toilet. That's what's there. That's what it was supposed to mean. Trail and I think it's supposed maybe it's a toilet.
I think it's trailhead and parking, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, what
The
is,
P is?
right here by
that makes more
the
sense.
sliding rock, there is a P there.
Well, that's private parking. That one is private
Yeah.
parking.
That's the little park that you've got up there, right, Will?
Yeah, by the pavilion.
Mhm.
That holds about 5 cars, 6 cars maybe.
Yeah, but that is private.
Yeah.
But I do agree with Will. I mean, people want access, and if your parking is all clear down at the bottom, and people want to come and do day hikes up the mountain, it'll be a little bit of a turnoff, I would think, for people to park there and then have to walk up to the trailhead to start climbing up above the subdivision. I just see people trying to get closer to the start of the trailhead than being down, lower elevation a mile away or whatever mile.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
and
that's why
that's
that's up there. That's why we put that one up there. So there's a place they can come up and park and then hike up. But it's not
Where's that one again, Will?
right up by the tank. That TA again.
The TA. Yeah,
There's
because
a
that's a big hike from that bathroom parking lot all the way up to that spot. And that's,
Yeah, and those, yeah, and that's why we put it there, because we thought some people may just want to go to first, second, heaven, God, whatever, and that's the best way to do it. But that's not, guys, that mountain right above that is as steep a place as you'll hike.
Yeah,
But that's fine. That's not my problem.
You know what, Jason? I've looked at both. I've hiked up to Lone Peak. I've done it. I've actually asked Will to have access to that water tank trail, but when I looked at it, it wasn't my preferred route. It's much better if you're trying to get access to the first and second Hemagog and even up to Lake Hardy and whatnot. it's much better to start from the Schoolhouse Springs, I think. I was just trying to
Yeah.
get my elevation as high as possible, but then you're traversing longer. And it's just a
It's
better,
steep.
more established trail from Schoolhouse Springs.
Yeah, I agree with Carla.
One thing that,
But I'm just thinking I'm lazy, so if I want to bike all the way either
We
to
tried to
Draper,
help. but
I'd
couldn't
want to
do it.
start up at the TA as opposed to going back the switchbacks and then start climbing. That's just me.
one request I've been receiving from several people on trails in general, though, is markers that tell them how many miles it is from point A to point B, even around Burgess Park, even around Creekside Park, how many laps, if they take laps around Creekside Park, how far it is. So even on these trails that we're talking about here, it would be nice to have some trail markers that tell how far it is from point A to point B for some of these people who might want to be putting on miles on their hike. Now, I'm not saying everybody does that, but I have been receiving requests from several people in regard to our trails distances.
Lon, I get that, but I feel like most people that ride or even hike will use some kind of app on their phone, or they'll have a computer on their bike that kind of tells them, and then they'll upload it to Strava or whatever application they're using. And it has all of that for you. It tells you exactly how many miles you've gone, what your elevation gain is, what your fastest speed is, what your average speed is for walking or biking. I feel like that's much more accurate.
It would, I mean.
Yeah, so I understand that for the avid users. So maybe pull it back a little then and get it into the into Creekside Park and Burgess Park, and let those people know that I'm just saying what's been requested of me. I don't really I don't have a preference. I would take a pedometer or whatever, my wristwatch or my, whatever tracks. I know how many miles a day I put on at work. So I don't need that either, but it's been a request. Just saying.
Yeah, Shane, do we have any mileage indicated on the large trail signs that we have, like in Lambert and other places? Because I can see us marking the maps so people get an idea of what once they hit a trail, how far they have.
I don't believe that we do.
We don't.
Okay. All right, that's an off-topic item, but we can certainly come back to that. Jessica.
Yeah, in looking at the Three Falls area, so it sounds like you have two staging areas, one by the water tank and then one, your new parking lot with the bathrooms. It almost feels like a natural place that people are going to pull off and jump on is right at that Three Falls intersection. What's your plan? I mean, is that just going to be part of the experience? I just think they're going to naturally want to maybe park a car there, because you can either go up over Sliding Rock or you can go back to, what did you name that trail? Forbidden?
Yep.
Yeah. I won't take it because you named it that.
It's tough.
You ran me off of it. So have you?
The challenge here, Jessica, is where you're talking about is the steepest part of the road within our project. It's at a 12% grade right there. The sight line isn't good because you come around the corner and that. So for parking there, it needs, if there was a way, it needs to be clear off the road and out of the way. If you'll see, you guys own that ground. So you own where the pond is, you own there. So at some future date, if you'd like to build a parking lot there, because it's makes it work. The challenge also that we had, the reason that did not happen there, it's a very wet area. Even today, with as dry as this spring has been, there's still moisture coming up in that particular area. And so that we looked at it originally, it had a place, but then as we started doing the geotech stuff on it and digging down, it's really, well, we have a pond, we have a detention area, and they're there because there's water there. And so that's an
But
issue.
I'm more talking about like, what's it gonna look like? Because you do come around that corner, it is that lowest area. What's the plan to mitigate parking up and down that, or can you, and was it gonna be a problem in the long run?
It will eventually be a problem because you said it, some would like to take a shorter hike.
Mhm.
The easiest way is to drive halfway up.
Mhm.
And so I get that, but the easier thing to do then is to go up to the tank and walk that shorter part of the trail and just meet it right there. That's not very far.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
Shane,
it's
do
a
we-
lot, and you're going down, it's not near as bad as coming up from the bottom. The bottom's about 3 times as far.
Do we have room to put in some 45-degree parking along the road somewhere to kind of relieve that parking burden? That people they won't make the choice between the high or the low. They kind of have their spot they want to get to.
I don't know where you do it if it's.
Yeah, we'd have to look at that.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of, without going to, needing as much land as we would need for a full-blown parking lot, maybe put some 45-degree parking in an extra wide, an area where we can widen the road might be the solution.
It just seems like that's gonna be a natural place to congregate.
I'm saying we can explore later, but right above the pond where we're staging now, maybe an area that you desire to put a parking area in. Then you could catch it. Couldn't quite catch it there, but that might be a good area for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a good spot, Will, because if the people don't want that climb from the bottom parking lot up and over to get to that point,
Yeah,
that's a good place to take off to go up over toward Corner Canyon.
Yeah, it could be a really good spot. So I won't landscape it when I'm done. Because that's the plan right now. It's supposed to get some natural landscaping on it.
How soon?
Oh, I'm next spring at the rate I'm going right now.
Plenty of time to talk about it.
Yep, you got time.
Okay, any more questions for Will? Would entertain a motion if someone has one.
Just a question, Mayor.
Yes.
When it says owners, are we approving an amendment? I mean, there's a bunch of things for a reason for amendment. I'm looking in our packet here. I'm not really seeing a motion at all. I'm seeing plat amendment approval. Now, if there's a plat amendment approval, what's the plat amendment exactly? And we probably, I mean, I get all these changes for fault lines and whatnot, but we don't have a motion in our packet related to that.
Well, there's a motion at the bottom of this portion of the packet, Jason. I motion to approve the plat amendment with the following conditions or changes. Bullet point 1, the developer addressed the plat red lines, including showing the trails. Bullet 2, whatever you want to include. We can approve part of or all of the requests based on whatever you feel is good moving forward.
Just find out, what's the plat amendment again? I mean, what document am I looking at that's the plat amendment?
Plat amendment would be the first page after the colored maps.
It's actually multiple pages long. Because of the
it
size.
is. That's right.
I think it's
There's a
like
lot of stuff in this
15
plat
pages.
amendment.
Three Falls is unique. No, most plats are on one page, but Three Falls is so big on so many acres that it takes up multiple pages.
To me, it's just this is, like you said, this is a huge plat amendment for us to make a motion on. Everything that's here, we're saying we can change it to this, right?
Say that again, Jason.
What we're making a motion on is we're making a motion to approve the plat amendment. The plat amendment we then turn to, correct me if I'm wrong, Shane, it's multiple pages, all of which I can't even read the wording on it because it's so small.
Yeah.
So we're approving something we really cannot see. We're just trusting that it's okay with the city.
Well, the plat's been through the review process and through Jed. He's got full-size plan sheets that he's reviewed. They're taken down, reduced from basically a 24 by 36 down to an 8.5 by 11 here. If you're looking at a paper copy. And so, yes, it is difficult to read.
It's one thing if we're making an amendment of the things here, like, you know, lot fault lines will be changed. You know, we say the lots like we have for reasons for the amendment, but for me at least, I have no visibility into everything we're voting for here.
Lon, did you have something?
Yes, the way I understand that is on the first page, the green page, it lists the specific things that are amended on that plat. And on specifically then, one, it talks about the public and private open spaces that are altered. And then on two, it then is specific to each of the lots that show up on those plats. And so this, to me, looks like it's the summary of what is changed on the plat. Is that correct, Shane?
Yes, that is my understanding.
And nothing else besides these 5 things here.
So that's what I understand and what I've seen as I looked at that as well, that is what we would be amending, is those 5 items. And within those 5 items, the various different lots that were adjusted based on fault lines and surveys and things like that.
Yeah, to me, the lot adjustments based on the most recent research for fault lines makes perfect sense to move forward with. I think where some of the nervousness comes in is, do we really comprehend what, if anything, we're giving up, or that in the future could be leveraged against the city? Not that I know Will doesn't have any plans to leverage anything against the city, but I guess what I'm saying is, what are we not seeing? Have we had a fair chance to evaluate what we may not be seeing at face value?
And I guess I've never seen it done this way before, to be honest with you. I've always seen us going through, make a motion to amend the plot plan by 1, and then we'd say that, and then 2, we'd say, you know, but I've never seen us just get a ton of unreadable modifications and say.
Oh, you muted yourself, Jason.
I've never seen us get it in this fashion before.
So let me point out one thing. So these little minor adjustments, I believe the ordinance was amended so that those could be taken care of by staff. Austin, correct me if I'm wrong here. The main reason this is here is not for those little changes. They're being pointed out since it is here. But the main reason it's here is because open space is being amended. And that has to come through the city council.
And David, does that have to go to a four vote or a super majority?
No, but you certainly could ask for that if you want. It's not a change of use of the open space.
Right.
As I understand it.
Correct. Okay.
Yeah, in this case, the city would actually be gaining public open space.
Yeah.
I think there are some things. I mean, this is a 15-page plat. If we really need to work out some of these trail issues where these nice trails have been put through private open space, that probably would be best taken care of in this plat amendment rather than coming back. Will, do you have feelings on that?
Yeah, I think for me, just to help make it simple, is if we do the plat amendments that affects the actual lots as one item, and then we can add that we can have Kyle redo the open space plat, because you're actually going to gain more open space than you actually are seeing right here, because I'm going to pull some of those areas where the open space is in private. I'm going to give those back to you guys as public. And so we will, and that's why I say I can work that with the staff. The bottom line is right now, you're up a couple acres in open space. By the time we're through, you'll probably be up 5 or 6 acres in open space. So I'm happy to just have that, oh, Kyle's gonna shoot me. My engineer has gone nuts trying to do this. This open space stuff, when you do it, it just kills them because they got to come up with an exact legal description for every bump and hiccup in it. But I agreed, I didn't know this, or I would have had it on there, that some of those trails right there behind lots 38, 39, 42, 40 are still going to be, because that's this over here. I pulled right out just because I realized we were in it. So if we can just get it amended to approve the lot, I will bring it back to you next time, showing these open space changes and showing that the trails are off of the open space, private, and they'll be in public.
Okay.
Can I say one last thing? Again,
Yes, Jason, go ahead.
Austin, and to Shane's point, we are getting more open space, but to me, all open space isn't equal. Having access to the mountains, having open space on the road versus a steep hillside or on top of a hill has different values. So I don't think we can just do a one-to-one correlation on that. To me, at least, I'm fine approving this. I'm just really concerned that I can't even read what the plat amendment is because it's so small. But as long as Will's fine having the road, change to public open space that heads up to the water
tank, fine.
That would give us, then if we were to get rid of the private, the public on the other side of that lot that may be bothering them, we've still accomplished our goal of giving our citizens access in multiple locations, not just the one on multiple locations along the subdivision.
So Jason, why don't you make a motion to include that? And then I think we'll all be on the same page.
Okay. My only concern again is I'm making a motion to approve the proposed amendment that I really don't know except for 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. But if what Shane is saying is correct, that really they don't even need to come to the city council for 2, 3, 4, and 5, which are.
Yeah, just to build off what Shane was saying. So like typically all those little nitty gritty details would Jed goes and looks at everything with the fine tooth comb and most plat amendments are dealt with at a staff level. So unless it deals with open space or a change of use, then it comes to city council.
But again, I don't know how to make the motion because it's not a 2-to-1 setup anymore with this thing, and Will is going to go back again and modify some things up.
Well, Jason, you could make a motion if you're ready, or someone could make a motion that would cover part of the list and leave the part that you're not comfortable with open for the next meeting for Will to come back with greater detail, maybe a little bit more clarity.
And I think that would be great. I think the one thing that could be addressed that might make everyone more comfortable is the language on the easement, or if it's going to be changed to open space on that access going up to the tank, which would create an access to those open space areas to the northeast.
That's what I would like to see.
On the currently recorded plat, I looked it up, it's Plat E, it's labeled as 20-foot access easement, but does not specify that I could see in my quick review who that access is in favor of.
Yeah, and I didn't think we specified. I think we just left, it's a 20-foot access, and yeah, I didn't think we had to put public on it, but we're at public because it's actually your Shane, because it's to your tank. That's right. That's why we had to put it there, so you guys can make sure your tank. But if we need to expand that language, that's something we can do in this next part too, is we can expand the language on that. And I'm happy if you make a motion that Jason says that the 20-foot easement going up to the water tank will be marked as a public easement access. No problem.
So, okay, if I'm understanding correctly, Jason, do you feel comfortable? I guess I'm a little concerned. I get it. You're concerned you can't see some of the stuff, but from my understanding of it is points 2 through 5 have already been taken care of by the staff, correct? Really, the only thing that would come to us is the public versus private open space, correct? Item number 1 for the reasons for the amendment. For me
Right.
personally, we would need to have language in the motion to say that the trail, the boundaries would need to be realigned for the private and public open space so that wherever there's a trail, that be switched to public open space. And from what I understand, Will, you're okay with that, correct?
I am. Mhm.
And then number 2, that we would need language in this motion to clarify the 20-foot access road to the water tank, that it is public access, correct? Is everybody on the same page? I can't see everyone, so I'm not sure.
I mean, I'm ready to make not make the motion, but to second the motion if someone wants to make that motion.
Greg and Lon, where are you guys?
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Jessica, where are you at?
As long as we are protected with an easement to the water tank, or that's illegally included, and have access to that staging.
So David, what would the language need to be in this motion to allow public access up to the water tank?
Well, right now, it's an easement that belongs to the city for access to the water tank. As Shane pointed out, if we're going to allow just general public access and not just limit the access to a water tank use only, we would just change the language to say that it is a public access easement in favor of Alpine City, and just leave it at that. Just if it's going to remain an easement, it'd be best to make it as broad as possible for us. If Will's going to dedicate that to this city, then we can. What were you anticipating, Will, on the change? Which is the easiest for your engineer?
Well, that it's an easement to you, Alpine City.
You're going to dedicate it on the plat, or you're going to do a paper?
I think that's easier, because then there's no question from anybody looking at my plat. I'd rather they see that now than someday think it was something else.
Okay, so we just changed the language to say public access easement on the next plat.
Versus. One more point I want to clarify from the staff level is that we do have a red line on these plans that they need to show the trails on the plat. So
right, and he was waiting for tonight to make sure because of all those ziggies that we're getting them exactly where they need to be. They're not exactly accurate as you look at your trail map, so he has to go in and walk them, and then he'll GPS them on so they can get it exactly where they are.
Yeah, there are a few other areas where the trail wanders into the private open space outside of that ziggy area.
Yeah, we're taking those. They're going into public.
Okay. So Mayor, I think I'm ready to make a motion.
Please do.
I move to approve the plat amendment with the following conditions or changes: that the developer address the plat red lines, including or showing the trails. 2, that the 20-foot road access easement to the water tank be designated as a public access easement in favor of Alpine City. And 3, that anywhere that the trails are currently running through be changed and be dedicated as public open space. Is that enough, David?
I think we have to give back the private and make a motion to give the private.
Yes.
Public open space to make it private.
Charmaine, did you get that?
Wait, I didn't hear. What did you say, Jason?
Isn't the whole point of this too to make that public open space that's going up there and make it private? Don't we have to put that in the motion?
No, because that's already in there.
Okay.
Because that's already in the amendment. So I don't think we need to change that, do we?
Jason, are you referring to where there is some public open space moving to private open space? Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Talking about the little sliver down there?
The two slivers.
Right.
This here, where the mouse is.
No, to the right,
To the right?
on the east
Okay.
side.
On the
That
border.
one and the one below it.
Mhm.
So where it says new private open space, there's two spaces,
Right there,
those two
yes.
areas.
Yeah, and I think Carla is right. If her motion was to approve the plat amendment with those conditions, that plat amendment includes that change. So if you vote yes to her motion, it would be approving that change from the public to the private and the private to the public where it's shown.
Okay, we have a motion by Carla. Do we have a second on the motion?
I'll second it.
I'll second.
Okay, second by Jason. All right, any further question or clarification on the motion? And before we get there, Charmaine, were you able to record the whole motion?
Yeah, I just had a question on that last item. She said anywhere the trail currently runs in private open space, that would be changed to public open space. Are they changing the designation of the open space, or are they changing the location of the trail?
No, I'm asking for a change in the designation of the open space to go from private open space to public open space.
Okay.
And Will agreed with that verbally. Lon, did you have anything? You're muted.
Yeah, so that means that he won't come back other than showing us what we have approved is real. Because Will, you mentioned that you would come back with this other. If we make this motion and approve this motion, you will be changing everything to meet what we were expecting, and you don't come back. Is that correct?
You still there, Will? I think you're muted.
Austin, do you have the ability to unmute Will?
Yes, give me 1 second, sorry.
I'm unmuted there, sorry.
There we go.
Okay.
That's a bit, Lon, what I'm saying is, I'll make those changes, no problem. They're not an issue there. If you need to see that map again, I'm happy to bring it back to you. Only thing I'd like you to do is amend the actual minor things, so I'm not held up on those. The ones that the staff actually could make, I need you to do. If you need to see the private changed on a map, that's fine. Otherwise, your staff can review it and it'll be done just according to what you make your motion.
Okay, so part of this, so can we amend that motion that was made to just simply include 2 through 5 then, Carla? I think is what he's asking, to make sure that he moves forward knowing that the city council is aware of that, and those amendments to the plat are included in this motion.
But it is, that's part of it. That's what the amendment is.
It's in there.
Because that's what David went over, is that everything in the plan amendment is being approved except for the 3 exceptions that I added. So that is saying that 2 through 5 is inherently being accepted.
Okay, Will.
Right.
You clear on that, Will? Because I think
that's what I said it a little rougher. Carla said it a little better. I'm saying I have to make those changes, those 3 exceptions that she said. I have to fix those before they're going to do anything with my plat.
I like your motion, Carla.
Okay. All right. Greg, did you have anything to add?
Nope, totally good.
Okay, I think we're ready for a vote on the motion. So we have a motion made by Carla Merrill and a second by Jason Thielen. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes unanimously. Will, you've got it.
Thanks for your time, guys. Appreciate it. We'll get the maps fixed.
And one other thing, Shane, if we could take a look, have the staff take a look at the possibility of 45-degree parking somewhere along the way toward the Three Falls area, I'm sorry, the Sliding Rock area.
Okay.
I think that's a win-win if we can come up with that. The people who use those trails will like it. They've got another choice, and it'll take some of the burden off the street parking.
Okay.
I totally agree. I mean, just to comment there, Mayor, I mean, I think that's one of the biggest concerns that I've heard and seen, almost from the beginning is the long walk up, and then also from the residents, all the parking in front. So that might be do a lot of good with the mountain access. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is the temporary residence. Austin, you want to take this one?
Yeah, so this ordinance change looks to modify two sections of the development code. The first one would be the accessory apartments section. So all accessory apartments are required to have to be owner occupied in the city of Alpine. So we have restrictions on where you can put an accessory apartment. It can be in a basement, it can be above a garage, it can be a certain, it limits it to a certain percentage of the main floor of the home. But essentially the requirement is the owner has to either live in the main unit or the apartment, and then they can rent out the other side. And basically they have to keep it looking like a home. It can't look like a duplex or anything like that. They have to provide off-street parking. But anyways, one of the things that this is looking to change is those owners, sometimes there are certain circumstances where they may have a bona fide reason why they're not going to be home. So there are periods, things like temporary job assignment, sabbatical, military service, voluntary service. In the LDS church, we have things like missions that people go on where they'll be gone from their home for a period of time. So there's just a number of things where, an owner may have an accessory apartment. However, there may be a period of time where they're not going to be home in that upper unit. And so the proposal here is essentially would add a section to allow for a period of temporary absence. And that would be added to the accessory apartment section of the development code. And then we would then add a section to the definitions of the zoning code that would provide a definition for what an owner occupant is. We don't currently define that right now. And so in order to make the first change, we would have to add a definition to do that. And so basically the ordinance allows for a period of up to 3 years that they would be able to be temporarily gone. They'd have to apply for an application to the city to qualify for that. And the owner would have to have owned the property for at least 1 year prior to their temporary absence. Those are kind of some of the key requirements. But basically it just gives more flexibility to individuals who, that's still going to be their home. They're still going to come back to that place, but they could have a caretaker, they could have a family member or whoever living in that other unit while they're gone for a temporary period of time.
Thank you, Austin. Thoughts?
Yeah, question on page 5, line or 12B4. What's the thoughts on the owner has resided in the residence for at least 1 year prior to beginning the temporary absence? What's the reason or thoughts on that?
The idea on that is that, someone doesn't just come and buy a house and then right away they take off and disappear for 3 more years. So it's just to kind of, establish that, hey, they're serious about living here. This is their home.
Reduces the possibility that it's purchased for the purpose of leasing it back out.
Yeah, Lon, that's what I was thinking. I thought the same thing when I read that. I was like, I actually like that that clause was in there to prevent from serial buyers and saying, oh, you know, whatever it may be. Because theoretically, you could know that you're going to be gone, buying it, take off. I think I would rather know that these people are going to be residents and that that's going to be their long-term home, as opposed to just buying the home, leaving and leaving a rental, and not really caring about the neighborhood, the neighbors, and future of that home.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts, questions? Gordon? I keep calling you Gordon because I
No.
see that first when I look at your image. Sorry, Greg.
No, I think it looks great to me.
Okay, Jason,
Looks great to me.
Jessica? Oh, you're muted.
Everything looks good.
Okay. All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion that we approve ordinance 2020-8 as proposed.
Okay, we have a second.
Second.
Okay, second by Carla. Motion made by Lon, seconded by Carla to accept the ordinance as written. Any last minute thoughts? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. Just real quick, Shane, I need to ask a question. I'm getting texts from some of my neighbors down the block asking if we have water work going on. One of them received a phone call saying their water service would be interrupted because we're doing some work. Are we doing that anywhere along High Bench area? Sorry, Shane, did you hear the question? No, you're muted.
I'll unmute him. Hold on one second.
There we
There we
go.
go.
Sorry, I did not hear that question. I stepped out for just a second.
Okay, got a couple of text messages during this meeting from people in my neighborhood asking if they are turning the water off. One or two of them got a phone call saying that their service would be interrupted because of some work being done in the neighborhood. Are you aware of any?
I'm not. I'll follow up on it right now, though.
Okay, thanks. I'd like to get word to them as soon as I can.
Okay.
All right. Item D, the Ridge at Alpine.
I think I'll introduce this one.
Okay. Okay, I'm still unmuted. All right, so on this particular item of the Rigid Alpine, the development phases have went a little bit different than what I think they originally thought they would. Steve Zollman, I believe, had planned to live in his home for some time, and now he is relocating. So it's kind of opened some things up on the south end of this project. I kind of identified the status of some of the phases and what's left in them in the first part of this cover sheet. In section 4.08.040 of our development code, it reads commencement of construction, site improvement or grading of a proposed subdivision site prior to final approval by the city council is prohibited. So right now they're working on phase 3, and I believe there's a map in your packet. Austin, maybe you could show that.
Yeah,
That identifies the 3 phases, phase 1, 2, and 3. So Austin, could you point to phase 3, kind of the southeast red bot? Yeah, right there.
Right here.
So they'll be coming to Planning Commission next week with all the requirements for final approval on that phase. But one of the things that this subdivision has is kind of a regional detention area. That is located down where Austin is pointing to there in that green area, which is also a park. There's a lot of cut and fill on this particular project. This park area will require quite a bit of fill. There are some options to be looked at here on what type of a park the council wants. There's some discussion at previous meetings. I think the minutes are in your packet. When this actually came for a revised concept and preliminary review. Since the council doesn't vote at that time, it wasn't clear cut on what type of park the city wanted. There's an option that includes a full-size soccer field. There was some discussion there. The amount of parking recommended for a full-size soccer field really exceeds what this area can handle. There's some discussion of making it more of a family park, which would also allow a smaller size soccer field for maybe younger kids to play in. Depending on which option the city council would like to see will determine the amount of fill. More fill would be required to make a larger, flatter area to accommodate a full-size soccer field. The lesser amount of fill would still allow for that smaller soccer field. So the intent here is to seek approval to do some work and some grading work, but not utility work down in this area to be able to move some fill before the road is paved that connects Elk Ridge Drive and Grove Drive. So that's essentially what we're looking at here. Things are just happening fast up there. This will be back to City Council in 2 weeks for approval of phase 3. The detention basin would kind of still be, it's outside of phase 3, but it's either a temporary detention basin needs to be constructed or get this more permanent one in place. We would probably prefer the more permanent one. They have had to do with other phases, some temporary ones. What's happened is water got in though, soaked up the soil, and then a lot of over excavation had to take place to remove very wet soils from water being stored in these temporary basins. And so that was the kind of the proposal to look at those things tonight and see if the council would be willing to give approval to work on, first of all, what type of park would you like to see, and then grant permission for grading work in that phase 3 and the kind of area just off of phase 3 while these approvals are being sought here in the next couple of weeks.
Going back to when this was first, I'm sorry, I didn't let you finish, Shane. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm finished, Mayor.
Okay, when we went through the approval process for this development, we were pretty careful to include language about that park. At the time, we felt like we needed more soccer fields and really wanted another opportunity for people at some level to, whether it's for small kids or bigger kids, but to have another option for soccer parks. Since that time, I'm not sure that, I think things have evolved a little bit. I guess that's the benefit of having council look at it again now, is to see if we still want to stick by that, or because it was a pretty strong request in the original motion, or if we feel like the nature of that part could change a little bit and still give the city the benefit it's looking for.
So I had a question, Mayor. The 25 parking spaces that I'm seeing in the plan, is that enough for the smaller soccer field? I know for the full-size one, you need at least 45 spaces,
Yeah.
but is 25 going to be enough to accommodate the small soccer field? Because if it's not, then, we're going to put undue stress on the neighbors.
Yeah. The younger soccer leagues, don't they max out at 8 players on the field?
I think it depends on the age group.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly I researched this a while back, but if I remember correctly, the older you get, the more players are on the field. So the younger,
Right.
You know what we need, honestly? We need more pickleball courts. So I would totally vote for a family park with a pickleball court.
So
Okay.
going back to the minutes that are in the packet from the city council meeting, July 10th, 2018. It says Austin Roy said that a park for 9 and under would reasonably have 20 to 28 cars. The revised concept plan showed 25 off-street parking spaces for the soccer field. I think that's the research that you referred to, Austin.
yeah, yep, that's the research, yeah.
Right.
How about a skate park? Just kidding.
Pickleball courts.
Hey, we got a big long request for a skate park today.
All I know is that Burgess Park, those pickleball courts have been so full lately. Every time I drive by, they are packed and there's a line waiting to get on.
Yeah, the stay-at-home order or directive has really put pressure on all of our public spaces.
But I mean, even during the summertime though, those pickleball courts do get used a
Yeah.
lot.
Yep.
I don't
People
know
ca-
any.
Yeah.
People carry around their own nets.
Well,
Yep.
Just as statistics on pickleball, it's increased 650% in the last 6 years. So there's a reason.
yeah.
Okay, but I am serious. Can we switch it to a pickleball court?
Well, look, I mean, even with a small soccer field there, you may have half the park where we could maybe put in courts.
Well, it's a
Looks
detention
like,
pond too, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess that would be part of the risk is if we have to put a hard surface down, does that put that surface at risk in case
Yeah.
the detention has to be used?
Shane?
So,
Yeah, good question.
You
yeah,
could do a sports court type surface and that could weather a flood.
so this is one issue I see, and probably a drawback to the city council not voting according to our ordinance at preliminary. You know, the developer has kind of progressed this development through our process to this point. They have 2 phases under construction. Basically, all of the construction drawings are completed at preliminary. And so that we know that everything will tie together. Now, as they build a phase, there might be a minor tweak or something like that. And those are the plans and reviews that are being gone over right now on phase 3 to make some minor adjustments. So I think they've had this expectation of what would be expected of them. I'm not sure how, you know, we would have the property. If we wanted to build a pickleball court there, we would have that right to do that. I'm not sure at this point throwing that requirement on them. I'm not sure how that would work out.
I'm just thinking because they have to do less fill, a smaller court, less parking.
Yeah.
It's really just some concrete, some fencing, and a couple of nets. Come on.
Yeah. We can
Besides
ask.
one tennis court.
Yeah.
Just mow the grass tight and have it like Wimbledon.
There you go.
Wimbledon. Okay.
Austin, do you know if Paul was going to be on tonight? I just looked and did not see him on.
I don't know. I didn't hear anything from him, so I don't know for sure.
Okay.
So, hey, Shane,
Hey,
just
so-
for feasibility, do we have enough space there if they did a small soccer field to really put 2 to 4 courts in if we wanted to sometime in the future?
I believe so. I can verify that, the dimensions and everything.
Without going
my gut
into the
feel is
detention
yes.
pond.
My gut feel is yes.
So would that be on the east side or the west side of the soccer field?
Let me, you know what, I'm looking, if Austin, could you put, so there's the cover sheet and then there's the map showing phases. The next drawing shows the grading.
Yeah.
actually, the next two would be helpful to look
Oh,
at.
yeah.
So
Got it.
honestly, looking at this again, the pickleball courts would be in the detention basin
Yeah.
because it's almost like an amphitheater with 4-to-1 slopes going down into a flat area in the bottom of the detention basin. And then exterior slopes, like on the south side, would be 3-to-1 slopes with kind of natural grasses planted there. So everything from the top berm and up to the parking lot would be maintained grass. The steeper 3-to-1 on the south side would be kind of natural grasses. So the reality is it would be in the detention area. So it really wouldn't be a good fit here.
So is it possible for us to nix the soccer field and put in pickleball courts?
If you have, Shane, if you have something that's more public like that, what's the ADA situation? Are we required to have access down to the bottom of that for people to get down?
Yeah, I think you would. And that could probably be worked out with some ramps going at the proper slopes and everything. But it's the issue of water being in there and covering cords and debris on the cord, and it's probably not a good fit.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's a good idea to do that, put it in the detention basin. But is it realistic for us at this point to ask for pickleball courts instead of a soccer field? I feel like honestly, most of Alpine would appreciate that more than another soccer field.
Yeah.
That's what I honestly feel, that our citizens would enjoy that and would want that.
Yeah. Well, the problem is, and this is where I said it's almost a negative that the council doesn't vote a preliminary, because the entire development has been developed based on this being a permanent detention basin.
Right.
And so it's kind of like if you had
No, I'm not on the detention basin. I'm just talking. Oh, are you saying that the soccer field is also part of the detention basin too?
Yes. But
I thought it was to the left of it. Okay.
No,
I'm sorry. That was
the detention basin.
okay.
So
I'm
that's where
sorry.
I
That was my
say
misunderstanding. Then
it's
never
kind of
mind.
it's kind of like an amphitheater.
The whole thing.
With
Okay.
a flat bottom.
I thought you were saying that just the left side, the left portion was like that. I didn't realize that it was the entire cutout, which would make sense because there's no lines there. Okay. Yeah. No, sorry about that. I understand.
But is there a porous material, like a sports court material, that's a porous drainage that could act as a pickleball court foundation? I mean, if it's going to have water in it, then the soccer field's not going to be usable either. So we're talking about a balance of when it doesn't have water, what does the community have the biggest need of?
So really, it's going to see water in a large thunderstorm. And usually within a day or two, it's drained out. And then the grass is back to being usable. And so it's very common in cities to see detention basins that have soccer fields or grass areas for things like that. It really wouldn't be a good fit to have any kind of a concrete surface, because stormwater usually comes in dirty. It would leave sediment on the concrete, and it would be an issue.
Worst case scenario, there's a detention pond or detention space on the corner of 3rd North and Alpine Boulevard in kind of that northeast piece of that 3-way intersection. And when we had the fires, that filled up to the top with mud and debris. So in that case, a court of any kind would probably be irrecoverable at the bottom.
Yeah.
But I think Carla makes a good point around the pickleball. Maybe, we could look for other locations, right? Because it's so popular.
Yeah, and that is something that we've discussed. The one issue with that this year is our general fund revenue question mark. And that's where that money would come from. So I'm not sure this will be the good year to really look at that. I mean, we can look at it and plan, but I'm not sure this will be the year to actually move forward with something.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to add a little bit of history to this. So this project did come to the city council at PRD for approval of the PRD. And at that time, the council asked for a soccer field. And so it felt that was the need at the time. Obviously, you know, things can change.
Yeah.
Over time.
And being part of that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Notes are in the packet there. Yeah.
Go ahead, Greg.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I was just going to say, I mean, I think the question posed is a family park with a smaller field, you know, of favor? And I would say so versus a larger field. I think there's actually more demand for a smaller and it works better for the neighborhood, but just a comment there.
Yeah, I was part of the process. I think, Lon, you were too, when we requested very strongly the soccer park, because at the time there was a pretty big need. We were overwhelmed with demand for all of our playing surfaces. And that seemed like a good way to help alleviate some of that. And we knew that it was for smaller games, smaller teams, but at least that would free up some space on the bigger fields for the more mature kids. But those dynamics have changed. I mean, the soccer is not in the demand that it was. Lacrosse and other sports have kind of hedged in on some of that, and we don't see as much demand as we did in the past. It's still there. We just don't have, I'm not sure that we do need that soccer field up there.
Exactly. I just wish it wasn't a detention pond so we could use it as a pickleball court.
Well, I think to move forward with that, though, we ought to still have it as a family park and have that.
For sure.
There's some trailhead close to there, right? So people could still park in there and then walk down the road a little bit and catch a trail if they wanted. But a family park.
I don't know. Can you catch it there? I don't think you can because there's private property all along there.
Wasn't there supposed to be a little bit of parking at the bottom of lot 72?
There is.
Park.
Oh, is there? Okay.
Park and go up. So I'm just saying a family park over there is what I would see.
And that could serve a dual purpose. I mean, you can squeeze a small soccer field onto a family park as long as there's not playground equipment on it. So it could do a dual purpose role.
Okay.
All right. Anyone ready to make a motion?
Hey, I had one other question there, Mayor. There's some concern raised by neighbors about the dust from the development and in general, and apparently there's requirements on water trucks and compacting and so on. What is the status on that, and is that happening? Is it working?
I haven't spent too much time up there in the last, say, 10 days, but a week prior to that, for a period of a few days, I was up there quite a bit. They needed my opinion on some things with our staff. I know they have water trucks up there, but it is a large site. Prior to it being annexed into the city, a lot of the vegetation and everything was removed. And so I know they're watering wherever they're working on the roads. The areas to the north that were kind of denuded before it came into the city, I don't doubt that there's dust that comes off of that at times. And it would be tough to go up there with a water truck, but we can definitely talk to the contractor and the developer. And I know that they were copied on a response from Jed to this email from the Russens. So they'd be aware of the issues that the residents are bringing up. So we can definitely do whatever we can to follow up on the dust control measures.
Yeah, thanks. Is there a standard requirement that they have to do it every so often, or is there is it kind of as needed, or?
It's really part of the stormwater pollution prevention plan. They're just supposed to control dust, and there are regulations on that. I don't have the exact details of what that language says in there, but we can have our stormwater person and Jed follow up with these guys on that, and we can send you more detailed information on that if you'd like it.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you for responding to the Russins, Greg.
Yeah, and they appreciated the feedback, and yeah. Jed was very helpful there.
Great.
So did Jed also address, and maybe you can offer me some clarification, their concern was there were some things in phase 1 that weren't met yet, and how can they start phase 3 without meeting the phase 1 city requirement? And maybe you guys can take a few minutes and explain that to me.
Yeah, Jessica, you probably didn't have the benefit of seeing the cover sheet, but if I can just look at it quickly here. Phase 1, the booster pump station, we held a pre-construction meeting on April 22nd. They've been waiting for actually the filters come from Israel. They've been ordered since earlier this year, and they should be arriving soon. But that contractor, it's the same one working on the development, is planning on starting those pump station improvements very soon. Let's see. The other couple things in phase 1, completion of the parking lot, and then some off-street stormwater controls, which are up the canyon, will be completed soon also. I did talk to Paul Croft, or he contacted me. They have a contract to complete the trails, and he said that should be done by the end of May.
Wow.
So do we go ahead and approve the phase 3 before phase 1 is complete, or do we have
to? I think Jed's comment on that was that the reason that needs to be done now is they're getting kind of boxed out, and so they're laying roads in the prior phase. If they don't move the dirt now, they'll be damaging roads in the future. So that seemed to be the reasoning. So this would protect the roads by getting this moved before they're in place. That was my understanding.
And
yes,
I think there is the risk of the perception of the surrounding neighbors that they are allowed to jump the gun and move to the next phase before they fulfill the requirements of phase 1. That might take some notification if we do allow them to do that. Maybe a quick explanation by the city as to why.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we didn't have any exposure as a city on that.
Mm-hmm.
So when a development comes in like this and prior to recording, we have a cost estimate for the improvements, and the developer is either required to construct the improvements prior to recording the plat or post a bond for 120% of the cost of the improvements. And so in this case, we have letters of credit on these phases. We've been very diligent in following up on them and making sure that they don't expire. There has been a recent extension of a letter of credit because they needed a little bit more time to complete some of these things.
And I see that Paul has joined the meeting. Paul, you're muted, but feel free to chime in if you'd like to make any comment.
Hello, Mayor and David Church and City Council members. You guys are up at it late.
Business as usual.
Business as usual. Happy to answer any questions you have. Thanks for reaching out to me, Austin, and happy to help any way I can.
Just a couple more things. And again, Jessica would not have received this because it went to the city council that was in place. Well, the Russins email was sent on April 27th. I guess it was yesterday. They mentioned a lift station for one of the phases. this was actually approved quite a while ago for a system that has individual sewer pumps for a few lots. So that's, there's not an actual lift station as they kind of refer to in this email.
And Shane, it might be helpful to point out to council members who were not there when that decision was made that as a city, we felt that one large lift station that we would be responsible for would be an undesirable situation. And when Paul brought to us the proposal to have each individual house have their own lift station that they would be responsible for, that kind of got the city off the hook and got them moving forward with their project. So that's why that exists.
That's correct. And there was a lot of time spent looking at some other options for gravity sewer and different things. And this is where the council settled after working on it for some time. So, and the other thing that they brought up was non-permitted retaining walls. I believe that engineering has been submitted. Is that correct, Paul?
Are you referring, Shane, to the retaining walls on the driveway to lot 72?
Yes.
Yeah, I heard from Tracy Burnham today, and he gave me an update on that and said that I think Ken Berg had been working with CMT Engineered, and they went back and redid their numbers and either had submitted to the city or it's soon going to be. I think they've gone back and forth with with Jed a few times on that wall, but I think they're back. It's back in our court now, from what Tracy told me today, but soon to go back to the city.
Okay. So things are moving up there. There's a lot of work being done. Landon spends a lot of time up there inspecting and working with the contractor, and things are definitely moving forward in the area.
Okay. Any further comment or a motion anybody's willing to make?
What, Mayor, if I can just ask, just because I'm sorry I'm coming here late. Did you guys? I'm assuming you guys have already talked about the 2 or 3 different park options, and
yes.
And if I don't know if Shane, you representing the engineering and the public works part of the city, if you had a preference on which, for independent of the size of the park, the other impacts of a change in size.
Yeah, and I mentioned this in the cover sheet, I think, but not in my comments tonight. So I know the towels have been concerned about the depth of the fill. There will be fill there for sure. With the family park option, there's about 12 feet of fill, as I recall. That goes up to a deeper fill with trying to make a full-size soccer field. So up to, I think it was 21 feet. So the more family type park will be less fill, which I believe the towels would be happy with.
And that's where council seems to be leaning as well.
Yeah.
Well, since pickleball courts are out of the question, yes, that's where we're leaning.
Oh no! Did you guys want to change to pickleball?
Yes.
Paul, do you have a solution for pickleball?
Maybe we could put in 4 giant posts on each corner and suspend a pickleball court over the top of the park.
But pickleball sure seems to be taking over the world. I tell you, we have one in our yard, and I feel bad when we play at night because the slap of the paddle on the balls can get pretty loud. I sometimes feel for my neighbors.
Okay.
Can we cut into the parking lot?
We could park in the detention and then play on the parking lot.
There you go. No, that would ruin the grass on the wet days.
All right. I'd love it if somebody had a motion to make. Lon, you look ready.
Mayor, I'll make a motion.
Okay.
If you'd like. I'll make a motion to allow the following: approve the park at the Ridge at Alpine development as a family type park that would allow for a smaller soccer field is described as option 1 on the figure. 2, grant permission for grading work to take place in phase 3 in the area south of phase 3 while the approvals are being finalized between now and the May 12 City Council meeting to allow for fill to be moved around from different areas of the project as needed prior to conflicts happening with other improvements in the project. And 3, require final approval of phase 3 and other phases prior to beginning utility construction.
Okay, Charmaine, were you able to get that? Okay. Do we have a second to the motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Greg Gordon, seconded by Lon Lott. Any further discussion on the motion as stated?
Yeah, option 1, Greg, what are you determining is option 1? Because I see 3 options. I'm guessing that's what you're looking at. Is that right? Where is option?
Yeah, and Shane, keep us honest here. Is that's one of these 3? Is that right? It's clearly the smaller soccer field in the family park, right? But it's
Yes, I believe it's the option on the right, the furthest right option.
Okay, so this page, it says option 1, is that in the size that it is?
Let me pull that out.
Austin, can you pull that packet and just help us all see?
I just
right there. I see it.
Are you seeing it on the screen? I'm
I
sure.
see it. I see it on the screen. I've got 2 screens going. I'm looking at when you put that up, it splits me.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay. Lon, are you good?
I'm good.
Okay.
As long as option 1.
Wait,
there,
is option 1 the one that has the 2 smaller fields on it?
family park. The ability to have 2.
So the one on the left is the original design. That's what we currently have, that you could put a soccer field on it. The far right, as you go to the right, the middle one's basically a compromise in the one.
So Carla, the one on the right is the smaller fill, 12-foot bank. The one on the left is a 21-foot bank. So we're
Okay.
We're
so
moving
option
to that one on the right, which
the
then
far right. Okay.
is just, Shane, all I'm asking is that considered option 1?
right. It's not labeled, but that sounds to be.
I think.
So
I
maybe
think
we could just clarify that it's the option that is a 12-foot bank.
Yes, that was what I was going to suggest.
Just do it. Greg, would you amend it that way?
Yeah, Mayor, I'll amend my motion here that it's the illustration on the right here, which is the 12-foot bank, and the pond lowered 11.5 feet.
Okay, Charmaine, you have that? Charmaine, I can't see you. Are you able to unmute and confirm that you got that amendment?
Yes, I did get that.
Okay, terrific. And Lon, you're obviously okay with that?
Yes, I'm good with that.
All right, good.
That's my need for clarification.
So Charmaine, would you please do us a favor and read back the motion with the amendment included?
Okay, well, it's the motion in the packet on the cover sheet, right, Greg? That everyone
Yeah, that's
should
right.
have.
With the amendment. Yeah.
With the amendment that rather than option 1 on the figure, it is the illustration on the far right, which has the 12-foot bank for the family, for the park. Approve the park in the rigid Alpine development as a family type park that would allow for a small soccer field described as the illustration on the far right, which has a 12-foot bank.
Okay.
Is that right, Greg?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, good. Any questions on the motion or comment by council? Okay. Paul, anything you'd like to add before we vote?
We'll support the city, whatever you choose. So they're
Okay.
all alternatives.
Okay, great. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thanks, Paul.
Okay, thank you all.
All right. You know, it's getting late. So I was going to take the next item, but I think I'd rather see it tabled and go to a deeper discussion in our next meeting. But just to give you a brief overview, I have some concerns about some things I'm seeing happen in some neighborhoods. So for example, in my area, a couple of streets away, there was somebody came in and purchased an existing home. There was a vacant lot next to it. They purchased that lot as well. And then they built a very large building on that second lot and connected it to the original home. The problem is the second piece of it that they're now calling an addition occupies the entire lot. They raised the grade, and so it's higher than any house around. In fact, it's taken away the views from most of the people in the neighborhood. And to me, that I get a little concerned when I see that neighborhoods that are fairly well established are at the risk of having somebody pop in and create a monster building. And I think that's worth looking at as a council. We've looked at it in the past and then decided not to do anything. And we labeled it as monster homes. What I'd like to see is maybe us readdress the issue. And I've seen it happen in a couple of other locations as well. It's not just my neighborhood. And address that along with what we would like to see happen with auxiliary buildings, or I'm sorry, I forgot the term suddenly for it. Not an outbuilding or an auxiliary. Help me here, Shane.
Accessory building.
Thank you. An accessory building. In this case, it's a pool house, but the pool house is taller than any house in the area, and it's broader in scale than any home in the area. And so I think we need to take a good look at what accessory buildings look like, what the limitations are, and how we want that to move forward in our city. So with that, I would just ask, you know, and people, if you want to continue the conversation, that would be great. If everybody's getting tired, I don't mind seeing that tabled for another meeting. Lon, I think you're muted.
They're not used to this. I would table that. I'm ready for bed.
So we have a motion by Lon to table. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Jessica seconds the motion. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. We'll table that for the next meeting. Let's move to staff communication. Hang on. Yeah, staff reports, please. Start with you, Austin.
Sorry, I was on mute there. I don't really have anything. I did, as Shane mentioned earlier, we did receive an email about a skate park that I think the mayor got as well. So
yeah.
Other than that, I mean, we're just dealing with the virus and moving on, keeping things going.
Okay, thanks, Austin. Charmaine, do you have anything?
No.
Okay.
Well,
David?
maybe.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm not sure when my last meeting is going to be, but if this is my last meeting, I've enjoyed working with everybody. I will miss Alpine City. I don't know what you're doing in May, so.
Okay. We'll make sure we have at least one more meeting for you, Charmaine.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. David?
Nothing from me.
Okay, I got a question for you, David. What patterns have you been tying?
I haven't been tying any during the meeting. I've been listening intently.
No, I wanted to hear something that you tie.
Huh? I haven't. In fact, in my enthusiasm for what you were doing. I tipped over a bottle of varnish and I've been cleaning it up here.
Oh, no.
Yikes.
And we heard no bad language on this end of the conversation. That's great.
I know how to mute.
All right, thanks, David. Shane?
Yeah, few things here. So I've had a couple of complaints about engine brakes in Fort Canyon. Why do they have to use them? And we don't have an ordinance that says you can't use them.
I'm sorry, use what?
Engine brakes
Oh.
on like a semi, a big truck, Jake brakes. Anyway, years ago, this was an issue for some residents that lived along Canyon Crest Road. At that time, and this is probably, I know Mel Clement was on the council, it was a long time ago. At that time, you know, we said, well, do you want us to create an ordinance that says you can't use them? And they said no. And so I think the sign's still there. It just says something like, please don't use engine brakes or something like that. I explained to this lady, we don't have an ordinance right now. She understood. I said I'd mention it. The other issue or complaint that I've heard in Fort Canyon is people riding bikes down Fort Canyon Road at a very high rate of speed. I would not be one of those people, but I can see where somebody could definitely get some momentum coming down there. They're just afraid that there's going to be some accidents. And again, I don't know what the solution is for that.
Yeah, I think that's going to be more self-regulating.
Yeah.
Those are-
So I just wanted to make you aware of those couple of things that have been brought up to me. I think Will, are you still on, Will? I think he is here.
I see him there.
I'd mentioned to the mayor today, construction and grading is starting to take place on the connection from Three Falls down to Alpine Cove. There's a trail that runs down below that area, and there's a huge concern with a rock rolling off or something like that and hitting someone that's on the trail. And so Will had talked to me about closing that part of that trail for a period of time to prevent that potential accident from occurring. So we're working on a map of what part of that trail would close and kind of a timeline and things like that that we can send out.
Yeah, that's probably my biggest concern is obviously we want to provide safety. We don't want to risk that happening, but I'm also concerned about the length of time that trail would be closed to facilitate the road. And I don't know if you are still on, Will, if you can still hear us, but we discussed the possibility of it only remaining closed as long as grading was happening and the removal of those rocks. And then once it was stabilized, then we opened the trail back up. But we'd like to know what kind of timeline we'd be looking at to accomplish that, because we don't really want to have that trail closed for, you know, the larger portion of the summer.
It says he's on unmuted, but
yeah. All right.
So we'll work on that and get some information out to the council. Let's see. I've had a request from Paul Anderson. There's some power poles that go over Main Street and kind of into where he's proposing to build a building. He has a proposal to eliminate all the overhead power that goes over from his power pole on his property over Main Street and then to another power pole in the Montdella development. Those two, Paul and the developer of Montdella have kind of worked together and have a proposal. He can eliminate all that. It costs him more money to do that, to bore under Main Street with these utilities. His request for doing that would be once we get the right of way from UDOT, which I'm being told will probably be, I can't remember if it's June 1st or July 1st, that he get, I think it was like 300 square feet or 400 square feet of property right there if you remember when he presented this before, there's kind of a triangle of property that sits east of the right of way. If he continues to go overhead with overhead power, there's a guy wire that goes down that requires that property. If he could get that, it would help him a little bit, but it would eliminate some clutter in the air. Anyway, I didn't want to bring it back through city council if the council was not in favor of something like that. So it would clear the air down there, and it is kind of a mess overhead.
So it gets rid of, how many feet of power line would it get rid of?
Probably 80 plus.
So the grand scope, not a lot.
Shane, I have some of the diagrams and stuff that Paul Anderson submitted, if you want, would you like me to pull that
Okay,
up?
that might be helpful because I think I slaughtered the description, Austin.
Yeah, let me pull up some of the stuff here and so you can get a visual.
And Shane, while he's pulling that up, if I could just maybe add, I think anytime we can reduce an overhead power line, particularly in the area where we've got the Dry Creek and some of the interface challenges, that would be helpful.
Yeah, and it actually, it's power and the phone line. It's either phone or Comcast that would go underground as well. So all of the overhead right at that location would go away. So I think it would be a nice thing to clean up, to put it all underground.
So Shane, you're looking for a nod from council to move forward then?
Just, yeah, it's, yes. Not a motion or anything. It's not on the agenda, but just a nod.
Anybody have an objection to it?
I still don't have an understanding of what we're giving up. I think I need to see something. We probably should just bring it back, send the stuff out, Austin. Let us see what he's asking for in return for it. And without that, I would make a suggestion.
Okay. We can do that. We can send you some information, Troy.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
So I didn't get this sent to David today. I got tied up this afternoon. I've kind of sketched out what I think we should do in selection of a new city attorney. David might want to golf or tie flies more than he is right now and have less night meetings. So what I would propose to do is the mayor and I get together and kind of put together an interview team for this city attorney position. And then we prepare a limited RFP that we'll send out to individuals that or firms that we decide we would want to potentially work with. And then our team can narrow it down to 2 or 3 through the process. And then if the council wanted to interview those, or if they just felt comfortable enough to let whatever team we come up with make that selection. Part of that would be asking them what their anticipated compensation would be, what they feel like they'd need in kind of the transition, and then get their references and all those type things. Does that sound like an acceptable way to approach this?
I like the committee idea because it gets it into a setting where we can really go through a process without having to do it in a city council meeting. And then we bring that decision, if we need to the city council after we've got hashed through all of the aspects of the hiring process.
Yeah, and that was exactly the intent there. David, does that sound like a good way to go?
Yeah, as long as I'm not involved in it. I have strong feelings about other attorneys that would color my opinion inappropriately.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll work on formalizing that. I'll get with the mayor and we'll start that process.
Okay.
So some of you might have heard the governor talk today. We were in another meeting that the mayor will probably talk about when they moved up a usual late afternoon meeting to a 12:30 meeting today to make some announcements prior to speaking to the state. Anyway, they're moving from the red to the orange phase of the kind of get back to normal plan. Supposedly more details will come out on this tomorrow that we can look at and see what we need to do. My understanding is that the governor has recommended the playgrounds remain closed. Looking for my notes here. Some other facilities are recommended to open. This will be an order, as I understand it, not a directive, as the previous things that came from the governor have been. So it's kind of a evolving thing every day, but we'll see what that means for us. At this point, my recommendation would be just to keep our office operating as it has. The playgrounds are already closed. We've got signs hanging on tennis and pickleball courts and basketball courts telling people that, you know, we hope to keep these open if they do the things they're supposed to as far as social distancing and all those things. So more information will come on that.
And I'll cover some of our meeting. I'll try to be as brief as I can once we're finished up. But one point of interest on what Shane just talked about is, I think one of the key elements moving from red to orange is the size of gatherings that are permitted. You know, we've got a lot of weddings that have been rescheduled, including my daughter, because they don't know how many people can come. And so it'll move from a gathering of 10 max under the red guidelines to 20 under the orange guideline. And then under yellow, it moves to 50, which is the next phase after that. So, you know, it is loosening up, but it's still a highly cautious phase that we're in, and easily go back to red if things turn the wrong direction.
Yeah. And as I understand it, there's some flexibility in the plan, but a city that feels like they should be at a different stage or different color than what is recommended as a blanket for the state, they would apply to the governor and give their reasons why. So, like I said, more information will come on that.
Yeah.
On our cell tower in Lambert Park, Sprint was the original company that built that and then deeded it to the city. They have merged with T-Mobile merged with Sprint, and they're kind of redoing all of their leases. We had one that I felt like was really favorable, had a good escalator on it. I think in their financial plan, some of those past agreements aren't working well now. So they sent a letter outlining two options. One is to change to a $21,000 a year payment with a 2% escalator. The other is a lump sum payment option where they would pay us almost $291,000 as a lump sum payment for a 99-year lease. Well, if you take 99 years times 21,000, not even taking the escalator into effect, that's over 2 million. The person that contacted me on this, the representative, the contractor for the cell company, said that they're willing to talk. My recommendation would be to go with the annual option, but maybe we try to work with them a little bit more and make that more favorable for the city. If I could just kind of get the nod on that to try to work something out that would be brought back as an agenda item.
I don't think we want to give up long-term revenue.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. I think that's all I have that needs to be covered tonight.
Okay. Thank you, Shane.
Mayor, if I may interrupt 1 second.
Oh yeah, hi. Hi, you just popped into my view.
Okay. Yeah, so with this new format, we're still trying to get used to things here. On our YouTube channel, we did get a comment from Corey Russin about that rigid Alpine. And I don't know if you want me to read that, but it came in. He says, what about the height of the road running north of the property and the steepness of the ditch on the property line?
So I can address that. That is something that Jed addressed in his email, and I'm not sure if it went to the entire council. I could look here. I know it went to Greg.
I did. I copied everyone in there. Yeah.
Okay. Their email did, but I'm not sure everyone saw Jed's response. But the elevation of that road is dictated by grades and our requirements at intersections. And so we can follow up with Russins on more details on that reasoning, but they should have received a copy of this email.
Yeah, and actually, Shane, they would like it if someone could just go out there and take a look at the road with them, like maybe you or Jed or someone, just to kind of walk through it, because they're not. Doesn't look like there's room from what they're seeing. However, it's not the final product, right? What we're seeing as Jed explained, and
right,
a few other improvements to be made. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went out there today also and looked at that too, and I can understand their concern about the grades, or maybe for some retaining around some of the trees so that the trees don't get buried up with a 3-to-1, things like that. But I'm sure they're aware of it. The contractor's aware of that, isn't that? Wouldn't they be on top of that?
Yeah, so I think there might be a little bit of confusion about if the development is doing improvements beyond their property line. Jed's response was that all of their improvements will be within their property, not over on the Russin side of the property line. So I'll have to double check on this, but I believe that big trees are north of the property line. So they would be on the development property, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. I think there's still some concern that if you're going to hurt those trees, then they're going to die and be a problem. So
yeah.
Okay. Moving on to Chief Thompson. Do you have anything?
Mayor, I mentioned to you earlier and Shane, but I thought I'd just bring it to the group's attention. We're obviously in the open burn season right now. That runs from March 30th through May 30th. There was some discussion at the governor's, one of his conference calls that he put out, considering reducing that to May 1st with the potential for wildfire spread. We haven't seen a whole lot of, I guess, issues related to that. And then we monitor the ones that are up, what we call on the eastern bench, and some of the interface challenge issues there. So we're just going to kind of play that by ear and probably continue into May with that. We feel like some of the fuels mitigation that happens through the open burn actually reduces some of our challenges that we may face later in the fire season. And so we'll just kind of keep an eye on that. If we do need to curtail those, then we'll certainly make notice to both of the cities in that regard. Other than that, I'm just trying to deal with what is our current new normal.
Everybody in the department still healthy?
Yeah, we haven't had any issues. We had one that had a couple of weeks ago had strep, and we held them out until we had a negative test there. But everybody's been safe, and we've been able to keep it out of the stations despite responding to some patients that have had the virus.
All right, good. Thank you, Chief.
Yeah.
Brian, are you still on with us?
Yeah, I'm still here. Just a little bit of update. I'm sure you guys have seen over the last few days that people are starting to move again. We're getting a lot more traffic. People are out and about, and we're getting a higher density of people gathering together. Mayor, we discussed earlier that we were in a meeting when the governor made that announcement they're going to move to the orange level from red, and I think we're just going to see that continue to be the case as people start to move out and about. So things are, call volumes have been down over the last 5-6 weeks. I'm expecting those to just shoot right back up as people get out and start moving again. So other than that, things are well, and we're just moving forward, as with Chief Thompson said, is the new normal. So.
And how about your team, Brian? Is everybody recovered and on their feet again?
So, you know, they recommended the 14 days of quarantine for incubation. We had one officer that had contracted it from a family member, and he was in training, so we put him on quarantine as well as his trainer. Was trainer and had them both tested. The trainer came back as negative on day 3. And I requested that he get tested on day 12 of 14. He was starting to show some signs of symptoms, and he tested positive. So we've now had 2. So we're glad that we had him on quarantine for that long and elected to take the safe route. Not infected anybody else, but we've got the one back, but the second one will be off until this Sunday when he should be clear to come back to work.
Wise decision. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, real quickly, I've got a few things to hit. Both chiefs mentioned a meeting that we had earlier today. Greg was part of that meeting as well, with a committee of local experts to help advise us on any things that we should be doing that we're not doing right now with the COVID situation. And one of the key topics of conversation, as it was alluded to earlier, is the parks and what we keep open versus what we close down. Again, I think we talked about this in the last meeting that we took down the volleyball nets. That was a problem area for gatherings. That seems to have provided the remedy that we needed. People are still gathering at the pickleball courts, the tennis courts. Some of those people are individual families that live under the same roof anyway. So it's kind of hard to regulate that. As long as we don't see a real problem developing, we'd like to keep those things open. And that was the consensus among the group. As long as the playground equipment is shut down, that we could probably leave the rest of it open. Again, to the governor's point earlier, there is some local autonomy to either stiffen or loosen the guidelines with approval. At this point, the committee felt like we are okay staying in step with the governor's recommendations. That helps keep out controversial decisions. But again, if we see something change that endangers the health of the community, we can make changes and will do so. So we're going to keep a close eye on those different facilities and make sure that they're not presenting a danger. So one thing I'd like to throw out there, a thought I had, you know, we've put together a letter for the upcoming graduates from Lone Peak High School. I just wanted to throw it out there to council. Do you think it would be possible for us to maintain social distance while throwing a parade for our high school graduates? Is that something we'd like to tackle? I'd like to do something special for them to commemorate their accomplishment, but I don't know what's feasible. Is there any thoughts on that? Potential parade?
Can I just share a brief experience we had tonight at my home? My son opened up his mission call, and what we thought was going to be a small group, meaning under 20, was a little more than that. And trying to keep the social distancing is a challenge at best. I'll just say that.
Yeah, within your household, yeah. And by the way, while this meeting has been going on, across the street from my house has been a massive block party celebrating someone's mission call. It's frustrating because people are ignoring guidelines like they don't exist. So to your point, Reed, you know, I don't know if it's possible to stage a parade where everybody rides in their own car and drives down the street, or if that's even worthwhile. That's just a kind of a thought I had. I'd love to hear other creative ideas on how we can acknowledge the graduates since they're missing out on their ceremony.
Well, I thought Alpine School District was doing a virtual graduation where they will be in cap and gown and they will receive a diploma from the principal of their high schools. And then they'll be able to have a photo opportunity near the block letters of each high school.
Oh,
That's
okay.
what I understood.
I hadn't heard that last part.
Mayor, along with that, I think they were also going to splice together a virtual, they're going to have the students walk, get their diploma, and then walk in front and have a picture taken in front of the logo of the high school. And then the schools were going to put together a virtual video so the students could watch that at a later date and, you know, in the couple days following. So, you know, I'd mentioned in the last meeting that we were going to do a teacher parade with Alpine Elementary. We ended up doing that, it was this last Wednesday or Tuesday. It went really well. No, it was last Thursday. It went really well, but like Chief Thompson said, there's a little bit of difficulty when people get out in public of social distancing. Some are doing very good at it and others not quite so much. So, you know, I think a parade, I think we'd have, especially with things moving to the color orange, we're going to have a bit more difficult time keeping the social or physical distance.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. In fact, I appreciate what Carla said because I think, and you too, Brian, because of what I didn't realize that the school is going to that extent. I know the principal's putting together a packet for each graduate, and that will include a letter from each mayor, you know, congratulating them on their accomplishment, that kind of thing. But it sounds like they're doing more than that. Yes.
Mayor, this is Bonnie. The high school is also putting signs out in front of all of the graduating seniors. Lone Peak is putting signs out in front of each of their lawns, so to acknowledge them.
Great. Okay, good. Thank you.
Mayor, can I, just a follow-up thing, last city council, I mentioned that we typically open the restrooms that have been closed all winter on April 15th. They are still closed. We discussed that and decided we should, you know, keep those closed for a little while. And that time, actually, we were having some very cold nights. Now it's warmed back up. Cal asked me today what he should do. I told him I'd ask for direction tonight, and that one slipped off my list.
My own personal feeling was that it'd be a good, safe measure to keep them closed until we reach yellow.
Okay.
That's my feeling. Does anybody agree with that or disagree?
Mayor, it's probably a catch-22 a little bit in that, you know, we encourage hand washing and things of that nature. And so that the plus side, if they're open, is that they have the ability to be cleaner. The challenge is just being able to keep them disinfected and all the challenges associated with that.
Yeah, and I guess I'm concerned a little bit about the people who are assigned to clean those stations and do work around them, that they run the risk of cross-contamination. Okay. Very quickly, we had just a review of some quick Utah County numbers. And by the way, the reason I wanted to put together the committee that we did is to get more of a local view of what's happening with COVID-19 specific to Alpine, Highland, Cedar Hills area. So that's been helpful to get the insight of both of our chiefs and some local ER physicians, family doctors. But on a county level, I had a meeting yesterday with the mayors and county commissioners, and just some quick numbers, some stats for you. In Utah County alone, we've had 17,864 tests as of yesterday morning. We've had 819 cases that proved positive, which is a 4.6% positive rate. That's slightly ahead of the state average of 4.3%. So one of the things we discussed, sorry, to finish up on that, we've had 5% of those diagnosed cases have been hospitalized. We've had a total of 7 deaths and a total of 12 ICU patients. But we were, sorry, I went backwards on something. At any rate, what I wanted to say was that Utah County has seen a recent spike in cases, and part of that was blamed on two businesses that relaxed their standards. One in southern Utah County, which is a construction company. They were discouraging people from calling in sick and asking them to show up anyway. They did. There was an immediate breakout among the team and family members, so that was a mini breakout. There was another company in northern Utah County that produces power bars. Same type of violation. It resulted in a shutdown of their business for the time being, and it was the origination point of an outbreak. And so we do still see an uptick in the number of cases. Most of them are linked to ignoring or disregarding some of the guidelines. So if you get a chance to talk to your neighbors, tell them not to make fun of people who wear masks, Jason Thielen, and start and to help comply. And I have asked the state presidents to communicate that to the youth. It's important, especially for the youth, to observe those guidelines and protect the health of their family members as well. And so with that, I have a couple of other quick items. Shane, we talked in the last meeting about slackliners and damage to trees. And then we talked about alternatively creating just a couple of posts in each park, maybe one at Healy and one at Burgess, one at Creekside. All it requires is 2 4-inch posts put in 4 feet or less tall, and we can put slack lines up and give those kids a chance to do that without harming our trees. The reason I thought about that again is because I had to go talk to another slack liner just a couple of days ago and ask him to take his gear down.
Okay.
I see that as a low cost win for the people who want to do that.
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
Okay. And that is all that I had. Lon, did you have anything?
Nothing.
Nothing. Carla?
Nope.
Greg?
Nothing, thank you.
Jason?
Nothing, thank you.
Hey, I'm still mad at you for making fun of my mask earlier. Jessica?
No, I just want to tell everyone I really look forward to working with you over the next couple of years. I'm excited about this group of people. So thanks for the opportunity.
We're excited to have you. Thank you. Okay, with that, will we have a motion to adjourn? David, you can't make the motion.
I'm pushing to leave the
I'll
meeting.
make the motion to adjourn.
Okay, do you have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion by Greg, second by Carla. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Bye.